If you need full dentures but can't deal with the endless expensive dentist visits, you need to see this. I used to hide.
I'm not nervous. I'm not worried. And listen, I'm not talking about Tommy because.
Countdown to Eternity starts now.
Well, hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another episode of Countdown to Eternity. And look, I gotta tell you, anytime I am with this guy, I feel at home. I feel at ease. I'm not nervous. I'm not worried. And listen, I'm not talking about Tommy because Tommy also is the same kind of way, but he's still out and about. I think he's in Israel again. I don't know. But
Hi, Di. Good to see you.
And I have to tell you, his scholarly work continues to encourage me and bless me. And it's funny because it's the first time I've ever written a book, and so I'm coming to him with author advice because he's done this many times. And folks, he just reminded me, and I think it's an important time to be reminded of this. We might be in the last days. Andy, what say you, brother? How you doing?
James, good to be here, and I think you're right on that one. In addition to many other things that were, I guess I would call it not the last days, because we've been in that for 2,000 years. I think I'd use the expression the latter of the last days, the last of the last days.
That would be appropriate.
Yeah.
That assertion would be appropriate. And there is a little bit of a story that I think would be also appropriate to bring out. I gotta find it. I have to find it because it is an interesting. It's an interesting thing that happened with this. But one of these days, I'm going to tell you the story of how God used this book that Andy wrote, "The Falling Away: A Spiritual Departure or Physical Rapture," a second look at 2 Thessalonians 2:3.
It's got about 3 pages in it. It's that thin.
To actually give me an in to a very specific conversation that may be changing a few people's minds. What's interesting about this book, which we're not going to get into all the controversy that surrounds what people think of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2:3. But what's interesting about this book is it drives you into the discussion of what Revelation tells us is going to happen to the world when there is no restraining force. I think the beginning of that description is remarkable when we get into a very vivid description of the function of totalitarianism in Revelation chapter 6. You see the ultimate totalitarian leader, the Antichrist. He's the rider of the white horse. Then, of course, as any totalitarian rule does, it brings in war, which is the rider of the red horse. And then, of course, that brings in famine and economic failure with, of course, an elite ruling class. That's the rider of the black horse. And then you got the pale horse, which is death. It's funny because you can see this discernible pattern throughout all of mankind, but the effects of it are so much more nominal as compared to the effects of it that we read in Revelation chapter 6. And that, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 kind of wakes you up to that reality, because when God removes his preserving force, things get ugly and they get really nasty really quickly. And I think we're gearing up. I think we're getting ready to see that time.
Yeah, I remember watching the late Charles Ryrie talk about this. He was sort of a master of illustrations, and he held up 4 fingers, kind of like how I'm doing here, if people can see that. And he put 1 finger down, and he says, that's Revelation 6. And he put 2 fingers down, and he says, that's Revelation 9. So by the time you get outside of Revelation 9, half of the world's population, is just wiped out.
Yep.
And we're not even, finished with the rest of the book of Revelation. So the truth of the matter is what's coming upon the world scene is something that's catastrophic and horrific. COVID.
A quarter of the planet will die, Diane. That's so stunning, isn't it? Imagine that. There'll be so many deaths you won't be able to bury them.
What were we talking about? Death of 0.0001% potentially of the population. What's coming in the book of Revelation is a destruction of half of the world's population.
Yeah, that in and of itself is a very difficult picture to be able to drive home for most people, because we just don't understand what 6 billion people look like dying, right? And that number, actually, mathematically speaking, could be substantially more than that. Because if you really think about it, you're talking about initially a quarter of the population dying in Revelation chapter 6, but then it has a compounding effect. So when you see, another third die off or another half die off, that's a bigger number because you have a smaller overall number. So it's not like it's a third of the bigger number. You're talking about a third of the number that's already been obliterated. And that's some scary math if you think about it. But look, we're watching this happen. And look at what's taking place in the Middle East.
Hey, Bobo, good to see you, mate.
It's amazing the dynamic that is changing so dramatically. That coupled with the rise in anti-Semitism that we see, very much predicted in Zechariah chapter 12. We see it touched up on in Zechariah 14. We see it everywhere. It's unbelievable. And what's changing right now in the Middle East is somewhat scary to me, in the sense that I'm not like scared, like, oh man, what's going to happen? But it's scary to me because it feels as though these last several months, there's less and less and less of an eye on it and less of an understanding of what's actually happening. When in reality, it happens to be the most ominous period that I've ever seen, ever since I've been teaching the Bible. And so that's kind of a difficult thing to be able to describe to people, how those dots are being connected.
Yeah, and people, of course, are leaving out the most, the elephant in the room, which is Islam.
Yeah.
One of my books is entitled The Middle East Meltdown. The subtitle of it is The Coming Islamic Invasion of Israel. And I try to argue in that book that the motivation for the attack that's coming against the Jewish nation in the last days, as prophesied in the Bible, most likely, unless something dramatically changes, is the ideology of Islam. And everywhere it spreads, it always results in persecution of two groups of people: the Saturday people, the Jews, and the Sunday people, the Christians. And here is this ideology of recent spreading into the West, spreading into our universities. Look at how Qatar and all of these countries now have influence in our White House. Look at how they're subsidizing so many of our universities, and people are coming out of those universities with an anti-Israel mentality and narrative.
Diane, doesn't he stomp on grapes,
And so,
which represent us?
so this ideology, and I call it that because it's a world conquest ideology. When you look at the actual teachings of the Quran and the Hadith, etc., very few of them deal with religion. It's mostly completely political.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you're dealing with a world conquest ideology, and that coupled with Marxism, sometimes called the red-green axis, red Marxism, green Islam, is really setting the stage for this type of worldwide hatred that Zechariah 12, Zechariah 14, etc., prophesies concerning Israel in the last days.
Yeah, and it is really interesting because you have to be able to understand the very core of it. I mean, even when you look at Islam, when you look at the Quran, it's so remarkable to be able to be aware of.
Bobo, we only use 20% of our brain. I think that's the number.
Of where it even came from. And I would argue that Islam isn't even a world religion. I would argue that the inception of Islam is fundamentally a heretical teaching concerning not just the Trinity, but concerning Jesus himself. As a matter of fact, in the
Diane, probably Buongiorno. Wow, that's heavy that he's fallen out with Trump.
Quran, which, by the way, the only extant manuscripts that.
But here's a true believer. He wanted to make America great again. This is Dan Bongino. So he's fallen out with Trump. Their policies must be different.
We have of the Quran are closer to the Ottoman period than they ever will be the time that Muhammad was alive. mentions that what people say is the name Muhammad 4 times, the reality of it is it's not Muhammad, it's Muhammad, and Muhammad means the anointed one or the blessed one, and it's very likely within those contexts speaking of the Messiah. Now, don't get me wrong, just because it mentions a Messiah in the Quran does not mean that the assertions that it makes concerning Muhammad is actually accurate. Quite frankly, what we're looking at is we're looking at a very functional depiction of what I believe is deeply heretical assertions being made concerning the gospel and an attack very specifically on the Trinity. If you don't believe that, you can go look at structures from the...
Hey, Andrew, you're going to see him, mate.
Like, for example, the Haram al-Sharif, the golden dome that you see right there, and it literally attacks the Trinity. It's writing right on top of the golden dome that pretty much attacks the Trinity. Why was it important for them to do that? Because it is a heresy of Christian doctrine. And it's interesting because when you take that and you couple it with statements in the Quran, very similar to this one, it's a direct quote, I can do it from memory. What it's basically saying is Allah is the chief of deceivers. So we don't even know where the accurate, what's accurate with respect to the assertions being made. Let me make this very clear. What's truthful concerning the assertions that are being made? And then even when you look at it from some level of even minute textual criticism, you've got what could be 90,000 plus variants from 4 main texts that completely contradict one another in a series of different ways. Not to mention the fact that you've got a whole storyline that's built on Mecca, which Mecca didn't even exist back then. And even if it did, it didn't have people, it didn't have water. You know, all these stories that we're talking about probably center around some place near Damascus, okay? I mean, let's get real. And many of the things, including a description of what people call the Kaaba today, really truly is probably a description of the Temple Mount. So the reality of it is, Islam is a fake in many ways, but what we have to understand, and this is the hard reality of what we're dealing with today, is you are never going to be able to understand Middle Eastern geopolitics as it exists in the modern day if you don't understand Islam. But even more importantly, and more specifically, you could throw away your understanding of Islam and simply embrace your understanding of the Bible and Bible prophecy from a perspective of the whole counsel of God, and then you will truly be able to understand the Middle Eastern geopolitical shifting. Because I will...
No, he comes on late usually, this.
Assert the fact that what you see with respect to Islam and the main claims that it makes with respect to the Middle East, and Syria right now is a great example of this, is basically based on a fundamental nefarious cause against the representations of the Bible. And as long as you can represent that, then you can see it. The spirit of Antichrist existed from the very beginning. What do you think Muhammad versus Muhammad is all about? Anti meaning instead of, and we're seeing this movement that has always existed within Islam. They're seeking to replace the collective consciousness of the true and living God by naming a God who isn't even real. And Allah is not a title, Allah is a name. So these are all things that are very difficult for people to understand. But when you begin to see what's happening right now in the Middle East, everybody should be opening their eyes because it's far more consequential than anything we've ever seen before in human history.
Yeah, and this perspective is what's lacking in our White House right now, even though I'm a big Trump supporter. But when you look at what Witkoff and Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, etc., are trying to broker there in the Middle East, the 20-point peace plan, it's like they're approaching this like it's a New York real estate deal. And Witkoff may be a whiz on those kind of things, but he is completely in over his head when you're dealing with the Middle East, because you're dealing with people that believe in something called taqiyya, the permission to lie to advance the cause of Allah. And they also believe in something called hudna, where there's no such thing as peace with Israel. Hamas, to my knowledge, doesn't even have vocabulary for peace with Israel. What they have is the concept of a truce, which is always limited. My understanding is it can last maximum 14 years. So all this talk about, Hamas is going to broker peace with Israel. I mean, you look at it through Islamic eyes, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous, and I'm just wondering why our administration just demonstrates such a lack of understanding about this. You would think with someone like Mike Huckabee, in the cabinet, who's one of the few in the administration, I believe, that actually has a grasp of this material, because you have to understand world religions and ideologies to understand this. I don't understand why he doesn't have more of a voice, and that's kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I think he should, and I think that the wisdom that he has is pretty remarkable. And I think that when push comes to shove, his knowledge of the Bible and his love for Israel is a saving grace when it comes to the foreign policy positions of the United States of America. I think we've kept things at bay. He's functioned more as a gatekeeper.
Wow.
I'd like to see him function a little bit more. But I do also think,
Diane, I wonder if that's got anything to do with the solar flares. It's got to.
that you have a pretty big barrier when it comes to what we're seeing happening with Witkoff right now and Jared Kushner. I think that, I'm not going to call it naive, but I think there is a lack of understanding with respect to what the real intent of these people are. And I think that that's going to wear thin on the president, because I think the president already sees through some of this. And when you start, a great example is what happened with Giuliani. And, the guy who just recently did the homicide bombing, they're targeting U.S. personnel, successfully targeting U.S. personnel in Syria, was a man that was a known affiliate with Giuliani. And not just a known affiliate with Giuliani, during the time of Hayat Tahrir al-Shem, and those days when he goes in and he takes over, this portion near Aleppo. No, this is a man who was associating with Giuliani, even up until recently. So, and when I say up until recently, up until he blew himself up. So, and we have pictures and we have evidence of all of this. And I think that that's the part that people don't understand. Just because you put a suit on a guy doesn't mean you're going to make him no longer a terrorist. But again, there's this huge disconnect that exists with people that don't understand the Middle Eastern culture. If they don't understand the country, like the country my mom and dad were both born and raised in, the disconnect that exists is going to be far and wide, because the fundamental approach that you take is built solidly on the idea that you believe they want a better life just like you want a better life. And they don't. They don't want a better life just like you want a better life. What they actually want is they want to do things Isma Allah. What they want is they want to destroy Jewish lives. Now, don't get me wrong, children are brainwashed into thinking that Jews are the reason for every problem that they have, and you've got that going on. But you are talking about a very culturally Marxist approach in some respects, and that's why you have this relationship between the communist world and the Islamic world. It's predicated upon the same demonic principle. Why? Because they have the same commander-in-chief, the father of lies. So that's why all of this begins to look like the way it's looking like, because the door has opened up in that way for people to fall into the trap of making the assumption that this is something that deals with just us coming together to want to make a better life. I think that's the mistake that the president is making right now with Mamdani. I mean, he's sitting down with him. He has a meeting in the Oval Office with him, and it's a great, meeting. Seems like they're cordial with one another and all that. And I really do hope that the president is able to grab him and control him a little bit, but that's not going to happen. Mamdani is driven by something completely different. Now, the only chance that he has with him is the fact that Mamdani probably isn't the hardcore Muslim that everybody makes him out to be, because if he was, then he would not be doing half the evil things that he does. Some of the stuff that he's doing, we would say in Islam, is haram. Like he can't do some of that stuff and actually get away with it. But the reality of it is, this could also be part of the suite of deception that we're seeing. But the bigger problem, and the one that I think is more succinct in all of this, is that you've got this, for lack of a better term, you have this frustration that exists amongst these younger people for them not being able to buy homes and for them to not be able to do these things. And they're blaming it on the policy of the administration, whether it be the previous policy or the current policy, as it relates to how they're dealing with, inflation and the tax rates and blah, 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 blah. But the reality of it is, this is a culture who has learned to finance their pizza through buy now and pay later. So they don't understand biblical principles. They don't understand any of that stuff. And they're responding to revolution. Revolution, oh, that's what we need. No, the reality of it is you need to take the most powerful tool ever given to mankind, the very word of God, the Bible, and you need to apply biblical principles to your business, to making money, to the family enterprise, right? Because money is just a tool. But they're blaming something else, and that's why the adaptation of cultural Marxism is becoming a big deal through the conduit of Islam, which is why Middle Eastern countries are beginning to develop more prominence with respect to the influence that they have. This is where Qatar is doing what it's doing well. This is where you're beginning to see some of these Gulf Coast countries do what they do. The Gulf Cooperation Council, they're all over the United States of America in many, many ways. And that's why you're seeing things, even with the problems that they're having with the southern portion of the Arabian Peninsula. All of those things extend into the very lymph nodes of Americans, and it is developing a cancer. And I think that's something very few people understand, because they don't understand what is the real problem at the core.
Yeah, and they're sowing deliberately seeds of discord, in our conservative movement, and I think it's pretty well documented, financing people, voices, from the right, to kind of bring in this preterism, bring in this replacement theology mentality, because they understand that people like us, James, like yourself, like myself, who are Zionists based on our biblical understanding, are really the people standing in the way of what they want to do. And so they've been after trying to dilute our conservative political system and our kind of our theological outlook for a long time. I mean, the left, they've got in their pocket. They're not worried about the left, but they're worried about the right, and some of these voices that we've seen rise up.
Andrew, I think we're in for a pole shift, because only a pole shift can move every mountain and hill out of place, like the Bible says. Only a pole shift can do that. So I think it's setting up for a pole shift.
Recently, I'm convinced are bought and paid for by Qatar and other Islamic countries.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And again, the people that are being bought off don't even see that as a bad thing. What they're looking at it as is an opportunity to build bridges and enter into a business agreement with people that are willing to.
The series not having Bobo.
Invest in them, and they see it as a good thing. And that's why many of them are okay about being American citizens while at the same time being expats of some of these countries. I mean, like that to me is just such a broken ideal. Now, I will tell you that I think the president is beginning to see through some of this, especially after what happened in Syria. Okay? Because when things like this happen in Syria, look, I can just tell you what's going to happen right now. Look, this happens in Syria. There's going to be a couple of people that are going to go in literal panic mode, complete panic mode, to try to fix the situation as fast as they can, because they don't want their influence to be disrupted. And the most primary person in that line is going to be Turkey, because Erdogan, who is Islamic Brotherhood in Turkey, wants nothing to do with the problems Al-Qaeda is creating in Syria, because they are, in essence, colonizing in Syria right now. And so, they don't want to re-erect the problems with the Kurds in the north. They don't want to create the instability variables that they know will exist on the Iraq side. And they certainly don't want to deal with the mess that Saudi Arabia is going to demand being brought in, as they're continuing to secure the area that they're going to call a portion of their massive land bridge. So you look at all of this come together the way it is. You've got one specific interest trying to secure modern day Babylon, to build it as we understand it in Revelation. And then you've got another side who's interested in one simple thing, and that is the potential of a new caliphate. And when I say a new caliphate, what I basically mean is the idea that they can hold together Islamic ideals in order to put in the mechanism of Sharia law within the context of countries that have been westernized in that area. They're going to start targeting Jordan. They're going to start targeting Egypt. They've been doing that already, and that's why Egypt has a huge aversion to Islamic Brotherhood. So, like, all of this is working into play, and I think hopefully the president will catch on to the fact that he's helping that cause and not slowing that cause by allowing that type of thing to happen. I think this bombing of U.S. service people is going to wake him up pretty quickly, because I'm telling you right now, NATO is going to get involved only from the Turkey side of NATO, and I also think that there's going to be a massive offering for people to step in from the Jordanian side and from the Egyptian side, all things considered, especially with Russia beginning to assert their position or their sovereignty still in certain parts of Eastern, well, really, technically, Western, I was going to say Eastern Israel, but let's just say Western Syria. So all of this is still in play, and let's not even get started on what's happening in the Golan Heights right now.
Yeah, and the thing to understand is the more
I haven't, Andrew, but it doesn't surprise me.
passive we are towards Islam, the more we kind of want to make a deal with them. The Western mind thinks that pacifies them. They'll stand down.
Right.
But in their mindset, it's the exact opposite. It feeds into this sort of what they would call inevitable triumphalism.
Yes.
We're winning, and it makes them more and more. It emboldens them. It makes them more and more aggressive. And this is what, going back to the roots of our country, the foundation. This was what Thomas Jefferson was trying to figure out, because these, Islamic Barbary pirates there near Libya kept doing these unprovoked attacks on our folks and our ships and whatnot, and he just did not understand it. Why are these people attacking us over and over again? We've done nothing to them. And he actually got a Quran, not because, contrary to revisionists trying to argue that Thomas Jefferson was open theologically to Islam. That's not why he got the Quran. It's the same reason you would read Mein Kampf to understand Hitler's mindset. It's the same reason you would read the Communist Manifesto to understand the Marxist mindset. He was trying to figure these people out. Why are they doing this? And it has to do with a worldview that says if you acquiesce in the West, using a Western model, those that you're dealing with would be happy and satisfied and back down. But that's not how Islamists and jihadists think. It makes them more aggressive, more emboldened. And until you have somebody in the Middle East that understands this grid, anything that we do over there is just setting us up for further problems.
Yeah, and I think this is the reason why communism, as it's being presented right now in society, American society, let's just forget American society, let's just say Western civilization, is much scarier than it ever was in the 60s. It's much scarier than it ever was during the Kennedy time, because at least during the Kennedy time, when Marxism was presented or when communism was presented, it was presented purely, and that is a very safe term to use, purely from an economics perspective. It was very much an economic argument, and the economic argument drew some cultural precedent, but the reality of it is most people, even from a cultural perspective, who gave themselves to this economic ideal were not as manipulated as what we're seeing right now. And this is the reason why Islam is so closely tied to Marxism as we understand it today, because what we're seeing today is cultural Marxism. And that's a completely different ball of wax than anything we've ever seen represented by the economic argument. And that's where you see this.
That's a good point.
Massive harmony that exists right now between Islam and cultural Marxism, because they are predicated upon the same exact beliefs. And why should we be surprised? They come from the same place. And I'm not talking about Marx, and I'm not talking about any of those things. I am talking about the devil. They come from the same place,
right.
Same strategy, same ideal, same mind virus, same garbage.
Yeah, and these shootings that we've seen, how come no one ever goes and shoots up a mosque?
Good luck.
It's always a Christian group, or the situation in Sydney, Australia recently, there at the beginning of Hanukkah, shooting up some Jews. And the reason this keeps happening is because these are
a couple of Christians got killed in that massacre.
different tentacles of Satan's kingdom, and they're not going to. What did Jesus say? A house divided against itself can't stand.
Yes,
They're not going to fight each other. They're going to fight together in what they think is the common enemy. And just remember the saying: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And back to the point you're making there about the 60s, Kennedy, back in that time period, we were in a much better position because Marxism was out there somewhere. It was external. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis and, different things going on, in that era. Well, today it's internal. It's in our schools, it's in our seminaries, it's in our pulpits in the name of social justice. It's in our institutions under the banner of, the green agenda. Remember, it was Gorbachev that came to San Francisco after he left the then Soviet Union and started a big green group. What was that, Greenpeace or something like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, what a strange thing for a communist to do, unless you understand that he wanted his communism to be internal, masquerading as environmentalism. And I remember the speech from Nikita Khrushchev at the United Nations, where he took his shoe, you remember, and pounded it on the table. I mean, basically what he predicted is America is going to fall like overripe fruit right into our hands. She's going to be conquered from within.
That's true.
Without even firing a shot. And that's the kind of struggle, that we find ourselves today in with this red-green axis.
Yeah, and I think that more than ever, this is why we have to be on guard. There's so much about this that is confusing because it's built on deception. There's so much of this that's going in a completely different direction. I cannot warn people enough of how dangerous cultural Marxism is, because cultural Marxism is at the core every evil thing that embodies what I refer to as the spirit of Antichrist, what John refers to as the spirit of Antichrist. It's the full embodiment of all of that. It is, in essence, the removal of the collective consciousness of God by assuming the ID of God themselves. And that's the idea. They are assuming the role of God, and in doing so, they are removing the collective consciousness of God. It's being done through tools like AI. It's being done in all kinds of different arenas, and those are all being accentuated through this. And that's the part that's kind of really scary if you think about it.
Yeah, and let's not forget the Muslim Brotherhood playbook that was discovered in the 1990s, I think it was, in that basement there in Virginia, and was ultimately entered into evidence in the Holy Land trial, you'll recall. And there's a line in that Muslim Brotherhood playbook which says, we will topple their house, actually their miserable house, through their hands. not our hands, through their hands.
Yeah.
And so this is all fitting into the theme you're describing, this sort of grand jihad, not so much external, but cultural Marxism trying to change a country, from the inside out. And they really don't have to convert us into full-blown Muslims or full-blown Marxists. They just have to lower the resistance.
Yeah.
And if they get us to change some of our values, then, when the time comes to implement Sharia law and or Marxism or some kind of wicked combination thereof, the people that typically resist it won't be resisting anymore, because we've changed their pastors, we've changed their theology, we've changed their pulpits, and they look at Jesus as kind of a Fidel Castro, cultural reformer. And so what's coming in now is actually spiritual. It's actually Christian. And remember what Paul talked about, the Apostle Paul, there will be a form of godliness in the last days which will deny the power therein. And that is this kind of new social justice, cultural reformer Jesus that has nothing to do with the Jesus you and I know, who was our creator and redeemer, the eternally existent second member of the Trinity, who humanity was added to deity. He became the unique God-man at the point of the virgin conception. Forget that Jesus, throw him out. Let's just give him a Jesus, same. We'll give him the same first name, Jesus, and turn him into kind of a cultural reformer, someone that
Andrew, wait till Vast shows up and Bobo rips into him.
It's the redistribution of the wealth. And if that Jesus is preached enough throughout our pulpits, when the time for the communist revolution comes, there won't be any resistance.
Bam. I mean, bro, that right there is, whoo, that, as the young people would say, that's fire. I mean, it's a perfect description. It's a perfect description. I think you guys ought to like clip that, all of you that are watching this, and play it again and again, because it's what happened. It's what's happening. It's a playbook right out of the devil's plan. And I mean, it's funny because you know what else plays into this? And I just had this thought. When you don't have fathers around, and they're not investing into their children and not sitting them down and teaching them and raising them up and educating them, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to get. It's interesting. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, and that's why there's so much attack on the concept of the nuclear family. I mean, I remember the show with the Bundys. Was it?
Yeah.
Was it Al Bundy? I don't want to mix him up with the serial killer.
No.
But
What was it called?
Well,
what is it? Life with Marriage?
Yeah,
I forgot the name of the show.
But it's fascinating because you see the man as the stupid one. You know, the woman, of course, is the one that's leading the family and smart and intelligent, and the man is just kind of, clueless. And you look at these different sitcoms, and the man, is almost always portrayed that way.
Yep.
Well, that's an example of cultural Marxism.
Oh, 100%.
Cultural Marxism has always wanted to tear down the nuclear family and remove the male, as the primary provider and discipler of the home. And I'm not chauvinistic when I say that, because I believe in the Proverbs 31 woman who, deals in real estate and all those kinds of things. But the woman is there not because she's unequal to the man, but her role is there as a helpmate. And what's happened with these sitcoms is the woman's in charge. I mean, she wears the pants and she's way more intelligent, and the man's just kind of a blithering idiot. And, we all look at that and laugh, and it's kind of funny, but you have to understand that that's selling a value system.
Yes.
That is conducive to cultural Marxism, because cultural Marxism can't succeed until you tear down the existing institutions that would resist cultural Marxism, like the family. So this cultural Marxism, cultural jihadism, it's everywhere, and it's internally corrupting our country.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Final thoughts, because we're out of time. This has been a good conversation. Really, really good conversation. I'm gonna give it to you to close up. That's good.
Well, I would just say as a final thought, we're starting to see an explanation as to why America doesn't seem to be mentioned anywhere in Bible prophecy.
Yeah.
And we've been scratching our heads on that for a long time. One potential scenario, and I say potential because we don't know exactly how this is all going to play out. We're just given the end product in Scripture. But one potential scenario is a scary one, that America is not on the scene in the pages of Bible prophecy because she's not a power anymore.
Yeah.
She's been corrupted from within. And so I would just encourage people, to look at our country through that lens of this angelic conflict that I'm trying to describe. We're in the middle of an angelic conflict, and now's the time to get on the right side of God. As our country deteriorates, people need to know personally that they're on the winning side of history.
Yeah.
And what puts you on the winning side of history is not being an American, but it's being a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, because he's coming back as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So we would just invite people, if they haven't done it, a great time of the year to do it, celebrating the birth of Christ. What a great time to be born again spiritually. If they haven't done it, to place their faith for their salvation completely and totally into the God-man, Jesus Christ.
Amen. And that's what it's all about. It's the only work, the work of faith, the work of trusting God. And that's where it all takes over. Well, guys, I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed making it. We are blessed to be able to be here for you guys. I want to say this because it is a heartfelt feeling from my heart, and that is Merry Christmas. We've got another episode coming. I'm going to put Andy on the spot. Hopefully next week we can record one for Christmas.
Okay, that was interesting, but this should be better. Don't forget, it's about the Islamic takeover. That's what I'm doing today.
Don't let cleaning make you crazy.
Camp Quality is giving you the chance to win this fantastic Jayco Adventure Camper van worth over $173,000. Let me tell you, the Jayco Mercedes Adventure Camper van does not disappoint. The kitchenette is brilliantly
like that. No one is allowed to talk about it, stop it, criticize it. Literally, you get great that you've come to the UK, yeah, because you need to take a warning back to the United States of America. Because what you're looking at here is your future. And do you know how quickly it comes? Like that. No one is allowed to talk about it, stop it, criticize it. Literally, you get crushed.
Hey, Vaz, good to see you, bro.
Now, everyone knows I was telling the truth. Your culture, everything that you hold dear, you're giving up for them. What would they give up for you? What does Tucker Carlson know about living in a Pakistani town? 50% of my town's Pakistani. There's only one thing they understand, and that's that. They understand strength. There's no solution without chaos to this problem. The chaos is that when you try to enforce the law against any Islamic community in Europe, you're going to see the countries burn. You're going to have a war. You're going to have a war.
This is Tommy Robinson. He's leading a movement of millions to unite the kingdom. If you remember the huge march through London just a couple months ago, that was Tommy leading it. To some, he's a truth teller, exposing stories the media won't touch. To others, he's a symbol of division. But regardless of your view, his impact on British culture and the West is undeniable. In this interview, you will see Tommy Robinson like you've never seen him before. Welcome back to the Nate Friedman Show. Tommy, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
No problem.
It means a lot. So,
Andrew, isn't the streets in London, aren't they all rioting still? It's been going on for like 2 weeks, hasn't it?
look, I want to talk about just what is your vision and what are you doing to achieve it?
What is my vision? So I'm born in Luton, which is a town 30 miles north of London. When I was born in 1982, there was one mosque. There's now 45. So rather than talk about what my vision is, talk about the vision of the UK, the future of the UK. Now, Luton is a blueprint for every town and city. So as I've grown up in Luton, I've witnessed the rise in anti-Semitism. All the Jews are gone. The homophobia, the hostility towards our women, the rapes, the terrorism, the jihad. I've seen it all. I've seen, as Islam has grown, I've seen the police's inability and the council's inability and everyone's inability to deal with it. They all just hide from it. They pretend it's not there. They don't just pretend it's not there, actually. They crush anyone who tries to raise the alarm about the problems that this brings. Because the problems that come with mass open border immigration are the problems I've seen in my hometown. Now, they are all down to government failure and policy failure of allowing in Islamic migrants in their millions. So that's what I've seen. I know Luton's a blueprint for the rest of the country. I've seen the more Islam, the less freedom. The more Islam, the more violence. Afghanis are 22 times more likely to rape in the UK than other nationalities. In 2003, we had 8,800 rapes. In 2023, we had 88,000 rapes. Now, this is a perfect
70,000 more rapes. Oh, my Lord.
Line with mass open border immigration and Islamic immigration. It's to do with the Islamic growth. You can literally draw a graph and it fits perfectly. The same with Sweden. Now, if we take that graph and we look another 20 years ahead at the same growth, we're talking about nearly 1 million women being raped. That's what we're looking at. So this is the growth of Islam. So my vision and all I've tried to do is raise awareness. It's like a cry for help. I started a street protest movement in 2009, which was to go out on the streets and say to the rest of the country, look, I don't think you quite understand what's happening here. I understand. I was demonized, I was slandered, I was attacked, called a fearmonger when I started this in 2009. Now, everyone.
You know, Nigel Farage is a phony. He's spoken down about Tommy. So Nigel, what's his name? Nigel Farage. He's not a good man.
On those, I was telling the truth. Unfortunately, the problem has spread across the whole country. Any town and city you visit now, you'll witness the problems I spoke about. But they used to be confined to towns like Luton, my hometown. Now they're everywhere. Rapes, attacks, terrorism, jihad, no one's safe, women aren't safe. All of this, non-integration, non-assimilation. There's no assimilation from the Islamic community. Now I talk about my experience because I'm from Luton, where everyone are sons of immigrants. My mother was an Irish immigrant. Most of my friends are Lucian, Bulgarian, Italian, Jamaican. We all get along. It all works okay. Islam, it's like oil and water. You're mixing oil and water. So my vision has always been to try and highlight it, try and even talk. You can't even talk about it. We're getting there now, but you couldn't talk about it. I've been imprisoned, attacked, deplatformed, censored from every social media. I've spent 2 years of my life on solitary confinement for work, for my journalism, in trying to highlight these crimes, in trying to highlight to make the.
Andrew, I weren't sure about Farage, but he mentioned Tommy Robinson, and he said, what did he say? He's a wife beater or something like that.
Public aware. This is coming to a town near you. Now, great that you've come to the UK, yeah? Because you need to take a warning back to the United States of America. Because what you're looking at here is your future. What Joe Biden done with your borders over the last 8 years, what's happened over the last 8 years, you used to moan, I used to watch Americans moan about Mexican immigration and Hispanic immigration. I used to laugh. I used to think, you ain't got a clue. You don't have a clue. Yeah. Now what you've just allowed in, Somalian, Afghani, Pakistani, Syrian, Iraqi, God help you. It's coming. And do you know how quickly it comes? Like that. Now, even our government have just 5 children on average. So I don't think people understand that when you're looking at the future of our country, it's trouble. We're in massive trouble because you only have to look 30 years ahead. Someone born now.
I can't see a way out for England. There's just too many Muslims. I can't see a way out, especially when the coppers are scared of them.
In 25 years' time, due to the birth rate, in their age group of peers, they will be a minority in this country.
Yeah, Bobo, he admits he was a hooligan. He admits that.
As an English person, they will be a minority to Muslims.
And thank God he did get into that hooliganism, because we need a fighter up taking these bastards on. We need a fighter. So good on him.
In 25 years. Like that. So that's the warning. So all I've ever tried to do is give a warning to say, and I wish, I travelled to the United States of America in 2010. I illegally entered your country. Stupid move. I knew it was wrong, but I felt the message I had was that important. I gave a speech called A Warning to America in New York in 2010. Dig up the speech. And I said to Americans, I wish someone come to my country 30 years ago and told me what was going to happen. I'm not telling you about what I've read in a book. I'm not telling you about some experience that someone told me about. I'm telling you about my life experience. I've grown up in Luton Town. Luton Town was named by the CIA as the epicenter of terrorist activity. It's the home. The kids that went and fought and died for ISIS I went to school with. Terrorists and conviction after terrorists. I know them all. My friends have converted. My childhood friends have converted to become terrorists. White boys. The prison system has been taken over. The entire prison system, from one end of the country to the other, every prison. The last prison I was in, 40% Muslim population. 40%. They only make up 6% of the UK. 40% of the prison. Control everything. They control the streets, control the prisons, control everything. Everything.
So I want to ask about a lot of that, but most recently you just said that your childhood friends were converted to terrorism.
Yeah.
Why?
He went to prison as an armed robber, and he come out a jihadi. Because when you go into prison, everyone is converted. There's no fight back. In fact, you can follow me if you want. I'm going after this to the city of Birmingham to tell the story of the men who tried to stop the Islamic takeover. One of my next documentaries is going to be telling the story of how the prison system crushed any resistance to Islam. There was a resistance at one point. A group of men tried to resist the Islamic gangs, the domination, the forced conversion. They tried to fight back, and they've been crushed. They're sitting on solitary confinement for years and years, just rotting away in the dungeons of prisons. And because they tried to stop Islam. Because no one is allowed to talk about it, stop it, criticize it. Literally, you get crushed. The same way I've been crushed on the outside, prisoners were crushed on the inside. So just think that everyone converts in prison. It's the biggest gang in prison. It dominates prison. It's a safety mechanism. It's a weapon.
Yeah.
And it's going to do the same to the American prison system. And just see how easily they'll convert the blacks. The blacks are all common size. They've done it here. All the young black gangs in my hometown Luton, all now Muslim gangs.
But I've seen that false flag on Sydney. I haven't watched any of it yet, though. I'm just letting the news all get filtered before I have a look.
All of them, every one of them, isn't it? The London gang, look, Birmingham, the city I'm going to now, two big black gangs, the Burger Boys and the Johnsons, the biggest gangs, all are now Muslim. Within 15 years, they've gone from totally non-Muslim to entire gangs, street gangs, are now all Muslim. It's because it's the biggest rebellion against the system. If you're in prison, you've been wronged your whole life, you want to fight against the system, what will fight against the system? Islam. And Islam will welcome you in.
So, what is the way out? And I asked that meaning that when I went to Whitechapel, I didn't see many people that looked like me. The statistics I read, some like 40% Muslim. It felt more like 90,
It's a
95.
lie. Forget the statistics, it's all bullshit.
It felt, when I was walking the street, it didn't feel anything like that. It felt more like 90, 95%. And I spoke to a lot of people on the street. One of them said, right outside a mosque, he said that
we respect the West and their culture.
Yeah.
And Islam has their own culture and their way of life.
Yeah. Another person said, we came here because there's democracy here, but we don't have democracy in Muslim majority countries.
So Muslims will use democracy to end democracy. That's it. What you've just seen happen in New York, it doesn't matter how bad he is now in his next term. It does not matter. Because people, 30 years ago, New Yorkers, it's all changed. New York's population has changed. They're no longer voting on politics, they're voting on identity. He's been voted in on identity, same as Sadiq Khan is in London, Ahmed, who's a total failure. Look at crime. Every failed statistic, it doesn't matter, still gets voted in. It does not matter. He's a Muslim, he's getting voted in. Yeah. Now, those same politics, which is Muslim vote bank politics, are being played across our country. Our whole last election was about Gaza. And we elected 5 independent pro-Hamas fascist Islamist politicians. That's what we've now elected. That's the start. And that's now, when 6% of the country is Muslim, this is the power they now hold. Now, you see your swing states in the United States of America. See if they get big Muslim swings in those states. They will dictate to Republicans or Democrats.
Andrew, in 2000, there was gangs doing the grooming gangs. As soon as they got caught, they got locked up for 25 years for rape. And we also had Muslims go down to the beach and gang up on the surf lifesavers. So they caught all their mates in and it ended up into the Cronulla riots. We've been on the Islam from the beginning. Our police force has got a Middle East organised crime unit because they've taken over all the bike clubs and sell all the drugs. They do all the underground business now. They're wicked people.
Block Muslim vote, because they block themselves like a military fashion, will be able to negotiate with Republicans and the Democrats if they can swing the vote. And then they will hold ultimate power. And at that point, like in my hometown, for example, in Luton, in 2013, I did the projected growth forecast. I've got 3 kids, I'm looking at my town, projected growth population forecast by 2030, so in 17 years. The Pakistani and Bangladeshi community were going to increase by 70 to 77%. The white and black by 1.2 to 1.4. That is why we're irrelevant. So in towns and cities like that now, we, working class, white English people, and this will happen to you in America, it's already happened in Michigan, it's already happened in certain places, this will happen, you will become irrelevant. Because the way the Labour Party, your Democrat Party, keep power is through the block Muslim vote. At which point, in my local town, the local council will do a deal with the leader of the council of mosques. So that will secure them 40,000 votes. What do you want for 40,000?
Guys, with that Sydney shooting, a lot of people are getting mad at the coppers because they didn't do nothing for the first few minutes. They were outgunned. The coppers showed up with pistols to take on rifles. There's no way they were going to get a clean shot off from a pistol with a rifle aimed at them. Once they got armed, they went in and done it. But they didn't do it out of cowardice. They did it because they were outmatched with weapons.
Votes. Now, even Nigel Farage, who's meant to be our next leader.
I rarely stick up for coppers, but this time I do.
Who's going to be our next leader, who's meant to be opposed to all this. He's already said in an interview, the Islamic demographic by 2050 is so strong in this country, we cannot alienate Islam. Now, how do you not alienate Islam? By surrendering to it. Because if you want to deal with this problem, you're going to alienate Islam. So when you're saying, what can we do? Well, we can start by ending Islamic immigration. It doesn't work at all. It just does not work. Yeah? If we need immigrants, if this country needs immigrants and hard-working immigrants, then just look at the statistics of crime and look at the statistics of work rate from the Muslim population. They don't work anyway, per se. They're 6% of the country responsible for 18% of the prison population, 3 times more likely. All of the crimes, all the rape gangs, Muslim men make up 3% of the UK population. They're responsible for 90% of the convictions of groups of men.
Wow.
30% of the men
3% owned by, oh, wow.
convicted are called Mohammed. We have 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list.
It sounds like medieval England here. It's just dog eat dog.
40,000. That's an army on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That costs us £9 billion a year. Now, all of these little problems, Pakistanis make up 3% of the UK population. They're responsible for 33% of the child defects at birth because of cousin marriage. Now, all these problems, maybe you can deal with them when 1% of the country is a minority population. But as it becomes...
Yeah, that's what they were doing. They were coming down to the beach and harassing the women. And when the lifesavers stuck up for them, they turned on the lifesavers. And when you fight a Muslim, this is what he does, or his mate does. They jump on a phone, and within like 15 minutes, you're surrounded by them. So, yeah, we got the upper hand that day when we righted back on them. They cowered.
6%, it's not 6%. You've seen that today in Tower Hamlets. Ignore the figures. It's total bullshit. I sat down my imam in Luton, the main imam, and I said, how many are there? 40,000 Muslims? He said, double it. He said, double this. He said, come on, Tommy. He laughed at me. I said, I know. He goes, double it all. So whatever the figures they're giving us, we can double. So say we're 8%. Well, you've walked around this country now, yeah? Everyone's seen the riots, everyone's seen the violence, everyone's seen the rapes. Look at the statistics, look at the crime stats, look at the hotels, just look at all of it, yeah? What is this going to be like when they get to 20%? Now, I'm not rolling a dice with the future of my kids and country, and this isn't their country. Now, for too long, we've been too ashamed to even say that. This is not your country from Somalia. You can go home. Yeah? Pakistanis, go back to Pakistan, can't you? Syrians, go back to Syria. Where are we going to go? Where, as an Englishman, am I going to go? Where are my kids going to go? When they become a minority, when violence is so bad, when my daughter can't walk the streets, because they can't walk the streets. In those areas, they
come to Australia, Tommy. You'd be really welcome.
Cannot walk the streets at night. They're coming under hostile, violent, barbarian-style rapes across the nation. So what is the solution? End Islamic immigration. You can start deporting the over a million illegals that we have here. You can take every criminal. I think we've got 12,000 foreign criminals in our prison system. They can go. Everyone on the terror watch list, they can go. Pakistanis can go back to Pakistan. Syrians can go back to Syria. Afghanis can go back to Afghanistan. Where are we as English people meant to go? Because at the minute, everyone's leaving. If you look at the rates, 500,000 Brits left last year. People are fleeing. Anyone with money is leaving. I know my friends are all leaving. They're going to Dubai. They're going to Spain. They're going to Portugal. They're leaving for safety because this country is no longer safe. Why is it no longer safe? Because we've imported hostility. We've imported aggression. We've imported an alien culture.
How do you get your country back from this? I can't see how England's going to get its country back.
Into our country, which is not here to integrate or assimilate, it's here to dominate. And we're witnessing that firsthand. In towns like Luton, in places like London, in Birmingham, people can see it with their own eyes.
So why do I hear from most when in Whitechapel, Bangladesh? Many of them don't speak English. Many of them are on government benefits. No English? What do you speak? Why Bangladesh?
Well, Tower Hamlets is Bangladeshi. Luton's Pakistani. There's certain different immigrants for different areas. You've got Somali areas, Milton Keynes. You've got Indian Muslims in Leicester, which aren't as bad compared.
The Somalian refugees that have come here, they've attacked people with machetes, and it's that bad they had to ban machetes from being sold. It's only like a month ago.
Some of the others. In fact, Bangladeshis aren't as bad compared to the Pakistanis. So when you grow up around all of them, you understand who's worse per se. But yeah, Tower Hamlets actually fraudulently elected their own Bangladeshi mayor, who then become in charge of £1 billion budget. Now, back in 2013, we had an organisation, we were fighting to try and highlight this problem. In the end, he was ousted. They got rid of him. The government were able to remove him. But when he became in charge of £1 billion budget, his first plan was to put £1 million sculptures of headscarves at the entrance to Tower Hamlets. He took all the money away from any moderate groups and siphoned it to extremist groups. This is what we're witnessing across the country is not just Pakistani politics, but Islamic politics, corrupt politics. Now it's here. Like the voting, it's all fraudulent, postal votes. Everything is...
Dad, God. Here's my spicy citrus maple syrup. Oh my God. Get this. Dad, cringe.
Magic moments filled with love. Sometimes it's the little things that remind us.
Is happening in the UK, but the biggest thing for you coming from the United States of America, you're just looking at the future. Whatever you've come here and you're going to go.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
I think this is a million miles away. It's coming to you. It's already in your country. And you don't understand how quickly this is going to grow. And you don't understand how quickly they will gain power. And the power, not just the power, but I don't think people quite understand. You may think you're different. I don't think people understand the influence and the power of political correctness, just how powerful it is. The fear of being labelled a racist, the fear of losing your job, the fear. So you may think you have free speech. You don't really when social media is still censored. Many social medias are still under control, which is the debate centre of free speech. For so many years, the right or the Republicans have been censored, deplatformed, and they've decided whose voices can be heard. Same as here. But these problems that are here, they're going to mirror straight to the United States. You're 5-10 years behind us. It's all coming.
So I think I witnessed part of the reason why this happened in the UK. I spoke to an older white couple in Whitechapel. We were the only white people on the street. And I asked them, do you feel comfortable here? Do you feel safe here? Do you like it here? Oh, yeah, sure. And I was like, well, are you cool with there being so many Muslim immigrants here? And they said, well, absolutely. UK, we conquered so much. It's time to give back. Is this a common mentality?
It's not common mentality.
Wow, they conquered so much. Wow, and we're giving it back.
A weak, pathetic mentality. You need to go to working class Britain. You need to go into working class estates and speak to working class British people. You have to understand that there's two different countries. London's a different country to the rest of it. Inside the M25, think different, act different, and are different. Did you see anyone looking like me?
No.
See anyone who looks or talks or walks or dresses like me?
No.
No, you won't. Yeah? That's working class Britain. Go to working class Britain, speak to them about their view of what's happening in this country. Now, I'd say the reason why it's been allowed to happen, I'll tell you what I've done. In fact, how long are you here for?
I'm here for 3 more days.
3 more days, okay. So get a hidden camera. Yeah? Right? Because I went to Republic of Ireland and I made a documentary called Plantation 2 Rise of the Celts. If you want to watch any of my documentaries, you can do them at trfilms.co.uk. Yeah? We'll get that plug in there. They're great. Okay. But I went there with the intention of showing the world how the women feel. This is what you should do. Yeah. And I put on a hidden camera. And then I walked down the streets where Muslim.
But I celebrate Christmas at Christmas Day. I think it's the intentions. I know it's really Nimrod's mother Ishtar or something like that. But I ignore that and I just honour Christ on Christmas Day.
Migrants were, and went up to English women where the migrants have been housed and just said, went up to Irish women and said, what's it like here now? I'm from England. And they're like, we can't walk the streets. We're terrified. I work there. My husband has to pick me up and walk me from A to B. It's all changed in 3 years. We're not safe. We're getting attacked. And then I'd say, brilliant. I'm a journalist. Let me just get the camera over. And then I'll start waving and they say, oh, I can't say that on camera. No, I can't say that on camera. And every woman, watch my documentary, every woman I approach tells the truth when they don't think they're being recorded. But I was recording everyone. They're all scared. It's all changed. They're all suffering violence. They're all intimidated.
But are they voting for it? Are these people that are afraid to speak on camera, are they voting for these policies?
9 million people voted in Keir Starmer. 20 million people didn't vote in the UK. That 20 million people is us. Yeah? That, as in working class Brits, because we've been so demoralised with politics, distrust in politics, told our vote and our voice doesn't matter. We formed this organisation 2 years ago. The purpose of this organisation was to give back our identity, which we've lost, to understand that a void has been filled. A void has been filled by Marxism, communism, LGBTQ+, and Islamism. All these things have filled a void where Christianity has been taken. So our identity, whether you want to believe in Jesus or not, we're a Christian culture, it's our history. So we wanted to form an organisation where what I did is get together influencers who have been sidelined, silenced and deplatformed, bring us all together, which was 20 of us, and say, what do we agree on? We agree British culture's at threat here. How do we fight? How do we save it? How do we fight for it? So then we started putting on events, public events, where we focus on our identity. We have celebration in identity, celebration in culture. Rather than talking against things, we talk about us. We celebrate free speech. We stand against mass immigration. We stand against Islam. We agreed on 5 principal values that we all agree on. And then we come together for these events. We held our first one, it was 30,000 people. Second one was 100,000 people. Third one was 200,000 people. 13th of September was millions of people. We have now hit mainstream Britain, where the lies and the smears for so long, they had this country, which is pretty embarrassing.
They can't hide it anymore.
Because I'd say we are the most fearsome fighting nation in the world, as in English men. We're known to fight. It's what we do. It's in our DNA. It's in our blood. And they have made us that weak that people, instead of fighting, are scared to even talk about things. Now, what we've always focused on, we need to remember who we are. We need to focus on who we are. We need to remember what our forefathers sacrificed and why they sacrificed. Why did they run into those fields? Why did they give their lives? What were they fighting for? They weren't fighting for the mess you've seen today in Town Hamlets. They were not fighting for that. So what were they fighting for? And it's about time that we grew courage. And I think that we can give inspiration and courage by people seeing that they're not a fringe minority. They managed to let people think they were on their own thinking like this. And on the 13th of September, millions descended on London, and the whole world could see that the British public is wide awake. There's a cultural revolution happening right now in this country. We're about to announce our next event. We're going to have a Christmas celebration of Christmas hymns. Because Christmas, do you know, when I led the English Defence League, there's so much going on in this country that is away from the Islamic immigration to do with an attack on our culture. Out of 360 councils, 6 councils changed the name of Christmas. They took the word Christ out. Winter illuminations, winter festival. They're doing it this year. I think if you go to the Christmas market in London, it won't be called Christmas. Go into Tesco's, they're not called Christmas trees anymore.
Bobo does that. He calls it Xmas.
Okay, so they're taking the word Christ out of everything. I had an organisation called the English Defence League. I wrote to the 360 councils and just said, our organisation, which is tens of thousands of us, young men, we will hit your city if you change the name of Christmas. And it costs between £500,000 to £1 million to police it. And that comes out of your council budget. Now, I got accused of blackmail. Google this story. You'll see the newspaper saying Tommy Robinson blackmails councils. I won't blackmail them. I learned from how the Islamic community operate. They threaten things. If you do this, we'll do this. And that's why the government continually pandered.
Let me ask you this something, though. You mentioned that the way out is to prevent all Islamic immigration. Now, I want to tell you about a conversation I had, though, in Bethnal Green, which was a British man tells me, we can't vote our way out of this because they're citizens and they're here legally. Yeah. He was talking about, we were at a bus stop and everybody at the bus stop, their eyes just showing their eyes. Yeah. And he's saying, look, they're here legally. They've gotten asylum. So is it true? Like, how do you vote your way out if
we have 1.2 million British Muslims who want Sharia law? That's 1.2 million British Muslims that need their citizenship to vote. They need to go back to their place of birth or their parents' place of birth. They need to look at, they've all got dual nationality. They've got Bangladeshi passports and British passports.
They don't want to leave.
Well, they have to leave. If you want,
but how do you get them to leave?
Well, if you wish to overthrow democracy and replace it with a extreme, violent, authoritarian idea of Sharia, you need to leave. And then, and you can make it you can make their lives very difficult, which is what the government should be doing. Make their life difficult. Well, our government just agreed to extend benefits for more than 2 children. Well, that's the Labour government. Do you know who has more than 2 children? Well, not us. English have 1.5. Yeah. So the Labour government have purposely brought in a policy that is to allow all of the migrants to have 5, 6, 7 kids, and we pay for it. And they've done that. What do you think they've done that for? Their vote. They've now got the Muslim vote because the Muslims can sit at home, not work. We pay for them. We go to work. They have 6 kids. They have 7 kids. We pay for it all. We're paying for the destruction of our country. We're housing the migrants in hotels. We're paying for all of it. When you say what can be done, there's a lot that can be done. Once the Muslim community know, step out of line, try and enforce your backward ideology on this country, try and change this nation, try and attack Christianity in this culture, you're gone.
But in order to do that, you need to have that be part of your political platform, and you need to be voted in based on that political platform. And I gotta say, being in Whitechapel, these Islamic neighborhoods, I don't see how you can win with that.
We can still win. We can still win across the country with that. If you look, we're running out of time. By 2041, we're done. Yeah. By 2041, we can't win.
Yeah, it seems that way. Yes.
We can't win. And that's the same with Europe. So if you look at the Europe voting patterns now, whether it be Wilders, whether it be Le Pen's party in the next election, Swedish Democrats, all of the grand parties across Europe are the parties trying to address Islam. They're the parties because the public can now see. I started my activism in 2009. I went into Europe trying to highlight these issues and no one wanted to listen. No one wanted to listen because they couldn't see it. Now everyone sees it. Thanks to social media. Thanks to the problem getting so bad.
But some of these sites are like, you don't believe it till you see it. So I went to what's the pronunciation? Bethnal Green.
Bethnal Green.
Bethnal Green. Okay.
So Bethnal Green used to be a tough working class. The history of that place is all of the old English criminals, gangsters. That's the home of boxing. It's the working class British London Cockney centre.
So the first thing I see when I arrive there is a big soccer match, a school soccer match, and there's about 20 kids all dressed in Islamic clothing. I didn't know what country I was in when I saw that, and I saw the only flag that they fly, even in the nursery, they're just showing the Palestine flag, and the children are not Islamic. The children, not all of them are Muslim in the nursery. So parents are sending them to a.
Well, they have parents have no choice.
Sure,
so the parents are stuck, same as Luton.
I'm saying that their kids, the teachers, are wearing a hijab.
Yeah.
So these sites are difficult to digest.
There's no solution without chaos to this problem. There's going to be no solution for Europe without absolute chaos.
So what exactly is this chaos you're speaking of?
The chaos is that when you try to enforce the law against any Islamic community in Europe, you're going to see the countries burn. When you see what Trump's doing now in America, you try that here, you're going to have a war. You're going to have a war.
Yeah.
Do you see any other solution, or no?
They've got the numbers. That's why in Britain they've got the numbers.
Only civil war.
Because you try to enforce. Say our government banned the niqab, they won't be able to enforce it. I know that. In my hometown, Luton, they will burn the whole town. The police will be barricaded in their own police station. You need the military, and even then, they will fight. That's on the niqab.
Italy is moving to ban it. So they say. So they say. You think they're going to be able to do it?
No. France wasn't able to do it, was it? So they say. So they say. But what's going to be the turning point is when a government is elected to deport. Mass deportations is now part of vocabulary for the British population. It wasn't 2 years ago. Things have shifted that quick, that fast. The mood of the nation is changing very quickly. People are fed up. So mass deportation is what this country is going to demand. Watch by the next time, the next election in 3 years, it's going to be screamed from the rooftops of every town and city by every member of the British population. People have had enough. Now, they were silenced, they were quiet, not anymore. Not anymore. Watch our next event. Our next event is going to be in the summer. I think millions and millions and millions are going to gridlock our capital city. Now, what are we going to be calling for? Remigration. Remigration. It's time to go home. Even say like the German population, they let in 1 million Syrians. Well, the war's over. The war's over. Most of these people, if they've claimed asylum in the UK, are unlawful and illegal. Their economic migrants have come through 16 safe countries, which means any of their asylum applications should be revoked. Go back to France. Start there. Yeah, start back in France. You were safe in the 16 countries you travelled through. You come here for economic reasons. You come here to bleed our country. You come here to drain our country, and you've not come to integrate or assimilate into this country.
Hello there. It's so good to see you.
At Hammond Care, we've been caring for people for more than 90 years.
A new generation slingshot, carefully crafted by a Berlin arms factory, more accurate than a pistol and legally ownable.
So, Are the migrant shelters still happening? So I bring that up because I googled, refugee centers, migrant shelters, and I went to them, and it seemed like they were closed.
No, they're not closed. Every town in the city has hotels. Every single town in the city.
Okay, it's very hard to find them.
No, it's not.
Well,
I'll give you the location.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just saying for a normal
for an average person.
For an average person, if you Google, like it's.
Oh yeah, they're going to hide it, but they hide it because now people are exposed to it. Well, I could give you a whole list of where they are.
It's just it was not honestly like in New York, the major migrant shelters were relatively easy to find. You would Google migrant shelter in New York City, you'd see them. There were some ones in the outskirts where, you'd see a Holiday Inn with the sign taken down and you'd say, okay, that's a migrant shelter. But they were more or less like the Row Hotel, the Roosevelt. These were like on display. But I didn't feel that same thing here. I didn't feel like the big migrant shelters were easily findable.
No, they are if you know where to look.
Yeah.
They are if you know where to look. They're in every town and city. This is what's woke the population up over the last 2 years. Because even towns that don't have a Muslim population, the whole hotel's now been flooded with men. The men are coming out there. 25 sexual assaults against children, 12 women raped, a terrorist attack, murders, all from migrants in the hotels. They're the ones being housed in the hotels, have committed these crimes. And bearing in mind, 90% of rape cases don't go to court. So if you've got 12 women raped. Mm-hmm. So when the riots were on after Southport, remember? There was a Southport stabbing of the three children murdered by Axel Rudy Kabara. In the riots aftermath, which our leader, I can't even understand the same phrase as Keir Starmer, but Keir Starmer was in charge of our country, or meant to be. Well, he come out and said that it was the far right rioting. What he didn't want to tell people, in Tamworth, where people were protesting and in the end rioting about the hotel, Mohammed left the hotel and raped a woman. Okay? In Hartlepool, a Muslim left the hotel and murdered an old age pensioner. In all of the cities where in Rotherham attacked young schoolgirls. So in all the cities where the public come out and said enough's enough outside the hotels, those Muslims have left the hotels and attacked, raped, and even murdered British citizens. People have had enough. Our government didn't talk about that. They don't address that. They just call it all far right.
This country is paying for its own destruction.
Totally.
And what I don't understand is how is everything that you have said, how is that not enough to wake a nation up? What will it take, in your opinion? What will it take?
Well, what just happened in Israel would be, a similar attack like that would be the equivalent of 15,000 British people murdered. Mm-hmm. If that happened, our country's awake. If that happened. But I'll tell you what wasn't enough. 26 murdered at the Ariana Grande concert. The soldier beheaded in London. Butchered and murdered and eating their dinner.
Obviously, this is before Sydney's massacre.
Borough Market in London. The attack on the synagogue. None of this has been enough to wake the country up. What I will tell you is I've been involved in this for 15 years. I would say now the country's ready. This country is ready for real change. Mm-hmm. I think the government know it. Everyone knows it. Our figures, I don't know if you've actually watched, look, just so, and I'll send you this so you can play this in as we're talking, just because they can downplay everything that's happening. Yeah? This is a revolution. Okay. Now this is the start of the protest here. Yeah? That's the crowd starting there. Yeah. This has never happened in Great Britain. This is the biggest event this country's ever had. This doesn't stop. The media told everyone 100,000. They're killing themselves because we quote tweet this. 66 million views we had. Now on our event we had 64 million watching. Look at the crowds. This doesn't stop. This does not stop. It just doesn't stop. Okay, look. That is millions, yeah? That is now the biggest protest ever in British history with 250,000 people with the Iraq War, and we hear all about it all the time, yeah? That the country's awake. No funding, no finance, no support. We brought millions to the capital city, yeah? Without coaches, without organisation. That is hard-working people making their own decision. That is a cultural revolution, and it's happening right now.
Were there a lot of people in that march that were living in central London or living in London, or was it mostly from outside?
There'd have been some from London, but they come from all over Britain. It's called Unite the Kingdom. Yeah, they come from all over Britain.
That march that you did was one of the few times I've seen the last few years where London looked like London. But when I went to in London for a week, there are times where I think I'm in Ukraine. There's so many Ukrainian flags. I'm not sure which country. And the trans flags, gay flags. It's just again, it's very tough to know which country you're in.
Yeah, but that's the same. You can go get on for a train. You go get off a plane in Berlin. Go get off a plane in Paris. Any Western European nation. Sweden, Malmo, any of them, you won't know where you are.
Yeah.
You won't know, and is that what we want? Is that what we want? Is that the future we want for our countries? And it's got to boiling point now where people have had enough.
So, a lot of the times, stories of a young girl being raped or murdered, it seems like people just almost like getting desensitized.
No, we are desensitized.
Yeah, and just recently I saw a clip. It's nothing like that. It was just a woman. She's having dinner with her friends, and these Tunisian migrants who have been in London for 1 month come under her chair, take the purse, and it's all calculated. They did it in teams. So one of them covered her line of sight, the other one kicked it out with his foot out of the chair. And they've been in London for a month. It would seem like they're not here to do good. They were sentenced to prison for 18 months, but without a deportation order, which I would think would anger a lot of people, but it doesn't seem, I don't know.
No, because none of them getting deportation orders. None of them.
Yeah,
no
why?
Why? Because the government don't care. The government have not had the drive, the want, or the courage to deal with this problem. And the easiest thing continually, because it's all bullshit numbers, it's all flooding the country of migrants to keep the fake money bubble going, to keep their GDP, to pretend that the country's successful when we all know it's not. Yeah. So they are continually flooding this country. Now, that's not just this country. It's not a mistake. You see, you've solved your problem by voting in Donald Trump. If you didn't vote in Donald Trump, exactly what you're seeing now would be flooding through your borders now in their millions into your country. Unskilled, uneconomic migrants coming with crime, coming with disease, coming to violently commit, coming as terrorists, would be flooding your nation if you didn't vote for Donald Trump. Now, the difference is not one single European country has elected a leader that is willing or brave enough to tackle this. Because when you want to be brave enough to tackle it, I'll tell you what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and assassinate you like they did Donald Trump. Because the globalist plan to weaken the nation, to break down the state, to desensitize, to demoralize, to feminize the men of the nation has been a well-orchestrated, well-funded operation for 50, 60 years. Yeah, Donald Trump's got in the way. Right now, I think that through Donald Trump, you're going to have a growth of European leaders who are ready to fight. And to be honest, I'll tell you straight again, this country's ready to fight. And it hasn't been. And I can tell you now, I thought I was banging my head against a brick wall for a decade. I was thinking, what is it? All we ever heard about was when that British lion wakes up, when the lion awakens, everyone better be ready. Yeah, I'm telling you, the lion's awake. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
it's just. I know we need vote. We need democracy to solve it. Yeah, but to get those politicians into a position where they're brave enough, you need the influence on the street. Yeah. When you see millions on the street, trust me, because Nigel Farage are all shifting their policies. Nigel Farage was against mass deportation 12 months ago, now he's for it. Nigel Farage wouldn't talk about these issues, now he's talking about it. Why do we think that is? It's not because of anything other than he's seeing the presence on the street, he's seeing the growth of our movement and the influence of people in our politics and the effect we're having on the public. So we had an idea, when we set this movement up, 20 of us come together, I said, we can try and start a political party now, we can try. We're going to need hundreds of millions of pounds. If we change the culture, we change the politics. We can actually shift the culture through a well-organised effort on the streets, through culture, through celebration, through identity. We can do that a hell of a lot quicker.
Right. So right now, Farage, he has on the prediction markets. I checked Kalshi today. It was 24% chance of winning. And
he's winning.
So my question is, the woman who had her purse stolen, here's how I would think about how it would go normally, is she has her purse stolen by Tunisian migrants. She says, okay, we can't do this. She tells her friends. Her friends are like, okay, we can't do this. But that must not be happening. Because, well, I guess because I'm saying, like, in New York, we have a similar thing in the States where it's suicidal empathy is what the term people use.
Yeah.
And it's that it seems to be that England got into this position because women like that who had her purse stolen, I can't speak for her, I don't know what she went for, but it seems like you should have a chain reaction where people say enough.
That's where we're at, Bob, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, you watch the next election. Ignore what they're saying about 24%. You watch the landslide. I have my finger on the pulse. Before my last event, I told everyone millions are coming. Biggest event this country's ever seen. Yeah, I sense it because I walk the streets. I see the reaction. People who didn't like me now like me. People who hated me now are on side. That moment of this person tells that person and tells that person, and people putting up with it. It's there. It's a bursting point. The country's ready. The country's ready for real political change. The country's ready. People are ready, and they weren't. And so Nigel Farage, unfortunately, I think Nigel's weak on a lot of the issues. Maybe he's playing it really cleverly. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah? I think he's weak on a lot of the core issues that we need to address. But he's a hell of a lot downside better than any of the others.
I want to go back to the Islam thing for a moment. So I had a conversation with a store owner who he came here legally as a student, and I asked him, why are so many Muslim people coming to UK, and why did you come to UK? And he said,
UK. So the main thing, UK have a lot of Muslim community here.
Bobo, we firmly know that when we die, we're going to heaven to be with Jesus. We definitely know that.
Yeah. So UK, I might be UK have more than any other country. We have a lot of mosques in UK.
There's about 14 mosques in Whitechapel that I counted, about equal number of churches. But it seems like Islamic life is very much based on availability toward mosques. Like they're consistently building new big mosques. Who's funding
Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and then whoever funds it dictates which form of Islam is being promoted in it. Qatar own Barclays, own Harrods, own the ports in this country. They pump £750 million into radicalisation in Europe. Qatar are a big problem. Qatar need ending, as in their influence needs ending. The influence they have over our politicians in our capital city and the money and infrastructure and economy needs ending. The Muslim Brotherhood needs ending. Trump's just made a great move. We need to make it here. We've been crying out for this for decades. They have such influence. You're right about the influence.
Bobo, what do you leave behind on the earth? I guess our clothes.
The Wahhabis, the Salafist mosques. No, I went for a meeting, 2013. I was leading the EDL and Bishop Tom Robinson, same name, of Pontefract. They called it a secret meeting. And it was with us as leaders of the EDL, and it was with Diabandi clerics. And the gentleman we were meeting had just been preaching at the Golden Dome Mosque in Jerusalem. So, and when we met the church leaders, we met in a church in Oxford, and the church leaders said, MI6 see these guys as the future leaders for Europe, for Britain. I said, these guys? Yeah, Diabandis. Do you know what Diabandis are? They're very orthodox. All of them will wear niqabs, and they're radicals. They're radicals. They may not be planting bombs, but they want the same as ISIS. They want to overthrow democracy and replace it with Sharia. They have the same end goal. They've just got peaceful means of getting it. But they still need stopping. We've got to stop them. So when I sat down, I said, okay, so these Diabandis are the future of our country, are they? And then when I sat down, I said, the bishop's there, the vicar's there, all the church are there, and all the Muslims are there. And they just said, tell us what's wrong. So I said, I'm going to tell you straight what's wrong. And I went into one about what's going on where the Muslims are from, because they're all from Dewsbury. You're raping our women, this is happening, converting our women, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, what are you not actually doing? What are you doing as a church for us? What are you doing? He goes, well, we have diversity days. I said, well, you have diversity days? Yeah? I said, tell me about your diversity day. He goes, well, at Christmas, we had a Christmas meal. Us, the church groups and the Muslims together. I said, did you have wine? And he looked. I said, you didn't have wine, did you? I said, you had a Sharia-compliant Christmas meal, you mug. I said, this is the problem. You're surrendering everything. Your culture, everything that you hold dear, you're giving up for them. What would they give up for you? Fuck all. To do with their religion, nothing at all. They won't budge. You're budging everything. You're budging everything. You're weak. You're pathetic, and they don't respect it. See, I grew up in Luton. I grew up with Muslims. I know all the gangs. I've grown up fighting them throughout my life. There's only one thing they understand, and that's that. They understand strength. They don't understand it. They respect it. They're their mindset. I know how they think. So when they see cowards and politicians bending over and flapping at their feet, they're laughing at them.
Yeah. Well, look, I know you said that Islam has no place in the West, and I know that a lot of people, obviously in the UK, are going to see it as bigoted, that almost like play a scenario in your head, which is like, well, what about a brilliant young kid from Afghanistan who can be a great engineer? He should be able to come here.
I think a lot of people worry about blanket bans. They
Look,
worry about that.
okay, so say here in this pot, there's 100 biscuits, there's 100 sweets. And in this 100 sweets, 2 of them, you swallow them, they're going to kill you. Are you going to pick a sweet out of that pot? Are you going to eat one?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. So why should we? So why should my daughter have to take the risk of 100 of those men? When you look at the statistics and the demographics and the crime statistics, why should my daughter have to take a risk of 100 of those sweets? I don't want my daughter to touch them. I want them gone. I want them out of here. Sorry before I smash the place up. I don't want them here. So if my daughter should not have to take that risk, yeah, why should any of our daughters? It's not a game of monopoly. It's not a game of roll the dice. Let's just roll the dice for Britain's future. Let's bring 30,000 Afghans in like Joe Biden did. Yeah, well, 2 of your soldiers have paid their price yesterday. Go and tell those families it was worthwhile. Go and tell them. Go and sit down the mother who's just lost her son or the child who just lost their parents. Because that's what's happening here. They're raping their way through this country. And I'm sorry, he might be a nice scientist or engineer. Well, let's find a scientist or engineer who's not from an Islamic country. It's not hard. And they will integrate and assimilate properly because unfortunately, the test is already, we've seen it. It doesn't work. It's not my fault it doesn't work. It's not the British public's fault it doesn't work. Because you know what? Sikhism works, Hinduism works, Judaism works. All those other cultures have come here, they all work. They've all integrated, they all assimilate. Some of them have their own close-knit communities, certain Jewish sections, certain Indian sections, but they're not raping, they're not selling heroin. Look at the crime statistics in the prisons. They're not overrepresented, they're underrepresented. In fact, they're overrepresented in success, in education, in schools. They're flying.
The cost of retirement will be different for everyone. UniSuper's retirement
He's
calculator
passionate,
can show you
isn't he,
how much you might
guys?
expect to retire.
I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to charge people over $1,000 to fix this exact kind of scratch. Now,
So this podcast is not sponsored, and instead I'm going to tell you about something that we've been working on for quite some time. This is the very first look at the Friedman Files, dossiers on the paid protesters that we've been exposing for close to a year now. You'll see them at more protests than you can count. You'll see their violent ideologies that they spread and the stories behind their arrests, all in one centralized location that you can look at and share. Go to natefriedmanshow.com/Friedman Files or scan the QR code to get a special discount. The link is also in the description and the pinned comments. And now back to Tommy. The 24,000 Afghan migrants that were brought in for £7 billion. Where does that money go? Because that's a lot of money for 24,000 people. And obviously Afghan, we know what.
Well, I think the 24,000 is going to become a lot more in it. They can all bring more family members.
So where's the money go? Where's that money going?
Probably to backhanders. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? But that 24,000, we already know, are 22 times more likely to commit rape. So some of those 24,000, just like the 30,000 you received, one of them murdered 2 people yesterday, right?
One person's killed, and the other person seriously injured.
Yeah. Is that worthwhile as an experiment? Is that American life? Is it worth it, losing it? Because those 30,000, they bring nothing positive. That's the reality. Even if half of them positively integrate, doesn't matter, because the other half ain't gonna. They're going to rape. They're going to commit crime. In fact, I just shared a thing earlier when I was digging through the news stories. Just to say that this wasn't like, to anyone who follows what's going on, this didn't just happen with regards to your latest terrorist attack. Here's some headlines. Afghan evacuee charged with rape in Montana. Governor says demanding resettlement halt. 2 Afghan refugees staying in Wisconsin arrested for trying to rape child, strangle woman. Driver exclaims, I should have served with fucking Taliban moments before fatal.
But Andrew, people are waking up though, aren't they?
Traffic stop shootout with police. Former Afghan diplomat charged with rape in Virginia. Now, this didn't happen like that in America. So that killing yesterday, all the warning signs have been there from the previous Afghans you've already taken. Now, you're such a big country. You're such a huge nation that someone needs to put the dots together. Yeah. But when you start putting the dots together, you realise those Afghans you brought in, they need to go. Somalians, they need to go. Okay. You want a safe, future, prosperous Christian America? Someone's going to have to tackle this problem. And unfortunately, again, I know in the United States, the influence of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the money, the business, someone's going to have to tell the truth. Someone's going to have to say how it is.
Yeah.
Well, with Donald Trump's last tweet, President Trump's last tweet, he said that Tim Walz was retarded for letting in hundreds of thousands of Somalians. So it seems like the rhetoric has.
Only because you got Donald Trump. It's only because you got Donald Trump. That's it. You didn't have Donald Trump. If Obama, you could say it was Obama, but it was Obama, wasn't it? But if Biden or Kamala would have won, do you know when you voted to save America? That wasn't just a vote to save America. So I hope you know how much we relied on that, and how much we rely on the hope that gives us. Because hope is contagious. Hope is something that gives you the chance. We've got hope because of who's in power in the United States. We've got hope because of Trump, because of J.D. Vance, because of Elon Musk. And that's why we're ready.
Speaking of Elon Musk, do you want to say a quick thing about how he's impacted your life?
Elon Musk has brought me from the gutter, lifted me back up. I was censored, deplatformed from everywhere. Not for any crimes. I've never been committed of any crimes to do with hate or racism. I was just deplatformed and censored for telling the truth, warning the public. Everything I said and was warning about has now been proven as true. Elon Musk has helped me. I recently had a terrorism trial, charged with terrorism, and I got not guilty, and the judge ruled that it was a politically motivated, targeted case. The previous case, both of which Elon Musk supported and helped fund. If he hadn't done that, if Elon Musk hadn't stepped in, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know if I'll still be alive, to be honest. My life was coward. So I owe Elon a lot. The British public owe Elon a lot. This country owes Elon Musk. Do you know, I don't think Elon Musk will be remembered for flying rockets into Mars. I think he'll be remembered for saving freedom of speech.
Obviously, I follow your Twitter, and I saw that you had just come back from Israel and Poland. What were the things that struck you the most about those two trips?
Well, Poland doesn't have any problems. Poland's a beautiful, clean, safe country. Lowest crime rate, lowest rape rate in Europe. Why? Because it hasn't had Islamic immigration. It's protected its borders. It still has a sense of identity. It still has religious belief. It's very Christian, very Catholic. So they haven't lost their identity in who they are. Hasn't been bred out of them. The men haven't been feminized. They're not all running around with rainbow flags. It's not been destroyed. Israel, the same. Strong sense of identity. They know who they are. Just sat at a table with 20 lone soldiers. A lone soldier, someone who travels to Israel on their own, no family there. And sitting with those young men, they are all aware that there's something greater than them. What's greater than them? The Jewish state, the home of the Jews, for these kids. Yeah? They've come to sacrifice their life on their own, to be willing to fight for something greater than themselves. In this country, we all think the greatest thing is us, individuals. We have created a generation of selfish cowards. That's what we've created, where no one actually really cares about the country or community. Everyone just thinks of themselves, just us. Whereas when you go to places like Israel, it's not about yourself. It's about the country, which is how we need to get.
This Sunday, Bobo, which is your Saturday, I do Christmas carols.
Again. So I had a fascinating time. I got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of stick, a lot of the usual bullshit accusations, but I don't really care, if I'm honest. I see Israel as the forefront. I see Israel. I went to Israel in 2015 to see how they live, because I knew how they live, we're going to have to live. And when I went there, I saw the bus stops, all bollards everywhere. And we didn't have any of that. We had freedom here. Now, go to a Christmas market. While you're here, go and get some footage. Yeah? Bollards everywhere, armed police everywhere, fortified. But I saw that in 2015 and realised that's our future. We're going to need this, because they were doing car attacks then. So they weren't doing it in Europe. Now they're doing it. Yeah. So I went to experience how they experience it. How do they deal with it? To ask the questions. Joe, I met a senior ranking politician. And I went into his office. Yeah, a very senior ranking politician. And on the wall was a map. And he drew a line. He said, "You see this wall here? Israel built a wall here. If they didn't, Sudan and Eritrea would have replaced the Israeli population. Yeah? We built a wall. Your politicians aren't doing anything." So I went to listen to, because there's so many accusations against Israel. I went to listen to, all of their politicians were very concerned with what's happening in Europe, concerned with the culture change, the attack. And when people say it's Israel flooding Europe, yeah, purposely, with Muslim immigration, this is what some of my detractors say, they're flooding. Why would Israel, a country this big, why would they want the future of Britain, Germany and France to be controlled by Islam. Because if those countries are controlled by Islam in the future, which is they say is the goal, that means their military is controlled by Islam. It means their nuclear weapons are controlled by Islam. It means Israel's gone. Reality. Yeah? If every single Western nation in Europe becomes Islamic, then that's not just Afghanistan, Pakistan. You're now dealing with superpowers who have got arsenals of weapons and military. So it doesn't make sense. The whole argument doesn't make sense. But I went there to ask lots of questions to see how they deal with it, to understand, which I think the public need to understand. Because you see, I feel here, living in Luton, from Luton, I feel surrounded. I feel surrounded by Islamic problems. I feel surrounded by terrorism. So when I went to Israel, I realised Hezbollah on the northern border. I don't know how many people realise 50 to 100,000 soldiers on the northern border, ready, waiting and trying for a decade to plan a ground invasion. Houthis, Hamas. I don't think people really understand what it must be like to be standing there and surrounded by 100 million, 60 million, 80 million. We've only got a small population in Israel. So I went there to experience all that. Had a fascinating trip. Come back unapologetically. I totally side with the state of Israel and the people in Israel. I don't give a shit how many people are upset.
Thanks, Vas. That's because this is our channel, not my channel. This is our channel.
Because anyone who's accusing that or beating that, do you know I listen to these Americans, going back to America, right? Tucker Carlson. Got Tucker Carlson on the video yesterday talking about he has more in common with his Pakistani taxi driver than he does some white middle class American. Yeah, what do you know? What does Tucker Carlson know about living in a Pakistani town? 50% of my town's Pakistani. You don't know nothing about Pakistani taxi drivers. What we do, we're beaten up by them growing up. Our daughters are abused by them. Our wives are harassed by them. Yet you pretend you know something. What do you know in the United States of America about growing up around Islamic immigration? We all talk about, well, the Muslims and the Christians are together. Yeah, come and say that in Europe. Come experience that in Europe. We're not together. They're not with us, you clowns. But I listen to all these new right-wing commentators talking just because they hate Jews or hate Israel, saying we need to work together with the Muslims. Yeah? Come and speak to people.
I'm disappointed Tucker Carlson said that because I like Tucker Carlson.
People who live with Islam. It's infuriating. I'm watching, like, even Tucker Carlson, thinking, what do you know about Pakistani taxi drivers, mate? What do you know? Do you know who's ferried all of our girls around in every town city? In Rotherham, Telford, Oldham, Rochdale, Birmingham, Bradford, Leeds, every city where our daughter's been raped. Who ferried them round? Pakistani taxi drivers. Tucker, your mates, who you'd rather hang around with. You know nothing about this subject. So don't try talking about it just because guitar are in your back arse, because it's pretty infuriating. Yeah. And I see that so much coming out of the United States. I'm looking at it thinking, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. You live in America. You're not plagued by Islamic rape gangs. You're not surrounded in the town with 50%, with 45 mosques. You've got no idea what you're talking about. So don't just start talking about how we need to be, we're all friends.
See, there's no way England can come back from this.
And Muslims and Christians are together. You turn that to the Christians in Afghanistan. Tell it to Christians in Pakistan, the Christians in Iraq. Go speak to the Christians in the Middle East. Go speak to the Christian population, which has gone from 20% to 7% in the last 20 years. Why? The real genocide happening right now in Nigeria. No, they don't want to talk about that. What do I want to talk about is Jews. It's pretty infuriating. Because there's a Jewish population in the UK and they're not raping no one.
In that same interview, Pierce Morgan and Tucker talk about how, well, no one should hate Islam because hating Islam is this evil you could be hating. Jewish people hate of all kind is wrong.
They have to hate Islam. Islam hates us. There's 100 verses in the Quran that tell them to kill us. Don't worry about us hating Islam. Read what Islam says about us. 70% of the Quran is about how to treat non-Muslims. Of course we should have an opinion on that. Muhammad beheaded 600 Jews in one day.
Yeah.
He raped, he pillaged. Well, of course we're going to have an opinion on that. Well, no one should hate nothing. It's like, mate, they hate you. Piers, you mug. They hate non-Muslims. And per se, not every. Yeah. I'm not saying every Muslim. Yeah, because I grew up in Luton.
That's what I mean, Andrew. I can't see how you're going to retake England back unless you put a big fence around Luton and them sort of towns, which isn't going to happen. We've only got one area of Muslims where they're thick, and that's at Lakemba, southwest Sydney.
I met some great Muslims, but they're not great because they're Muslim. They're just good lads. If they followed the Quran to the word, they go fight for ISIS. Do you know we had 4 times as many British Muslims went to fight for ISIS? So bearing in mind, we've had 60 years we've had a Muslim community, 60 years. In a 3-year period, 4 times as many British Muslims went to fight for ISIS in that 3-year period than had joined the British military in a 60-year period. We have a problem, yeah? And it's not hate. It's not us, okay? It's not us, right? For highlighting and telling the truth. Unfortunately, the truth hurts some people. Unfortunately, people don't like hearing this truth. Unfortunately, people like saying, oh, I mean, but the same people who don't like hearing this truth, yeah, they don't live with it.
Why is it okay to want more people
and vast, baby.
that look like you and to have the same values as you? Why is that?
It's okay because if Nigeria become a majority white nation, it would be wrong. If Japan become a majority non-Japanese nation, it would be wrong. When you look at Chinese parliament, how many non-Chinese people do you see? When you look at Russian parliament, how many non-Russian people do you see? When you look at our parliament, you see Muslims everywhere. Now, you're right about other migration as well. It all needs to stop. We have had too much migration, whether it be Indian, Sikh, whichever, Hindu, we've had too much, okay, of all of it. But if you address the migration, then the birth rate of those communities is not going to replace ours. So you can deal with it. But if we deal with migration, we've still got to deal with the Islamic birth rate because through the womb, Colonel Gaddafi said we will take over Europe without firing a bullet. We'll do it through the biggest weapon we have, the woman's womb. Now, it's not a mistake. 7 children they're having on average in France. We're paying for it. But to the people who feel like that, we are a majority white country. We must remain there, or it no longer ceases to be Britain or England. The culture disappears. It changes forever. There's 1,000 years of English, white, Christian history.
And why does that matter? Why does that culture matter?
Why does it matter? Because that culture is Britain. That's our culture. Why are we going to give it away? Our forefathers fought in wars, in battles, sacrificed, bled, died, suffered, tortured, everything to protect our culture, our identity. Our culture is the most superior. Let's stop pretending all cultures are equal. I had this debate when I had it with journalists. I said, well, Islamic culture, we go living in an Islamic country then. You think it's so great? Well, a woman is a property of a man. Bullshit culture. We are the most superior, advanced culture in the world, which is why everyone wants to come to our country. There's 50 Islamic nations, right?
It's a good day to water after 4. Every day is a good day to save water.
Oh yeah, that's the feeling.
Go there. Why don't you want to go there? Because they're all Sharia-driven shitholes.
But the people that are getting, these young people that are getting a 6-pound coffee with like 12 pins on their backpack, they don't. I know that they don't. Well,
now
there's a lot of them.
you see a lot of them in the posh little London. But what I mean is, there's an awakening happening from working class Britain that's coming in every town.
I understand, but I'm saying that those people, it seems like convincing them through this idea that their ancestors had fought for them and that Britain had fought for them. Obviously, I get it, but I don't think that is going to hit a nerve with them.
They just need to know the truth about Islam. We need to stop hiding the debate. They need to know who Muhammad was. They need to know his crimes. They need to know his views on women, his views on homosexuals. Most of them are liberals. And I'd say most liberals are good people. And they're liberals because they're loving people. But they think all cultures are equal. They think Islam is just like Christianity. Jesus was just like Muhammad. Now, Jesus said, turn the other cheek, and Muhammad said, cut your bloody head off. There's 2 vast differences. Yeah? 2 differences in ideas, in everything, in ways of life. Islam is not a religion. It needs to stop being recognised as a religion. It's a total controlled way of life. It needs to stop being given the same recognition as a religion. The last thing they do in a mosque is pray. A mosque is a command and control center. It's there to command and control the entire community, to change the community, control the community, to Islamize the community. Where do they start all their wars from in every Islamic country? Where do the wars start? From the mosque. Okay? People just need to understand what Islam is.
Yeah, but these people, liberals in the UK and United States, it's a very similar mentality. They don't want to paint with a broad brush. It's the last thing they want to do, and I think they're willing to die over it.
Well, they're going to have to die over it anyway, because they'll be getting killed by the Muslims. Like the left who aligned with the Islamists in each battle, whether it be in Lebanon or in Iran, they were killed straight away. They aligned with them. Many of you're never going to convince a staunch Marxist communist because they're aligning with them for their political ideology. They see Islam as the biggest weapon to help overthrow the state because they want to destroy the state to break the state down to start again.
You
So
too, Lee. Merry Christmas.
The do-gooders, the decent people who just try and protect everyone, lovey-dovey's, they're going to realise at some point Islam's going to bite them on the arse.
I don't think any of this could have happened without the education system. A lot. So when I went to Whitechapel and these other Islamic neighborhoods, I spoke to students that were about in high school, and they went to private schools where they dressed up in Muslim attire, but they were private schools. They weren't public.
Madrasas.
Are they teaching about Islam in public schools, or is it just in private schools?
And in public schools.
In public schools.
They're not teaching the truth about it. They're not teaching facts about it. They're teaching that Islam means peace. It doesn't mean peace.
They teach that in public schools?
Yeah, my kids went to school and they come out. My kids, all they were hearing about was Islam. My kids. All they're hearing about is Islam. I don't mind if they're teaching them truth about Islam, but they're not. They're teaching them this lovey-dovey version of Islam, how Islam means peace and everyone's beautiful and, oh, Islam's great. We pray this way towards Mecca. No, Muhammad beheaded people. Tell my daughter when she's 9, Muhammad married a child her age. Tell the kids the truth. But they're not touching on any of the truth. They're basically downplaying and bastardizing all of it, weakening the reality of what Islam is. To lie, they're lying to the next generation of children. They're confusing them, they're indoctrinating them. And in those madrasas you're talking about, they just learn the Quran all day. I know girls that went to those madrasas. My mate went to one of those madrasas till he was 11. He had to leave and come to our school. He had to leave because they started teaching him his dad had the devil in him. His dad was black. His mum was a black Muslim Kenyan and his dad was white. They started teaching him his dad had the devil in him. Those madrasas are a massive problem because so many Muslim kids are not even in the British education system anymore. They're just in these madrasas, learning the Quran every day of the week.
So they're teaching that Islam is a religion of peace. Do they teach about Christianity or Judaism? Or
yeah, but not as much. So they take you to the mosque from the age of 6. The kids are taken to a mosque at 6 years old in every school across the UK.
Not my kid. I'd keep my kid home on that day.
Every school across the UK, national curriculum, they bring all the children to the mosque. The girls have to cover their arms. They're not allowed to bring a ham or pork in their lunch boxes to school that day. They want you to pay. When my kids were at school, got a letter, it's going to be £2, they're going to the mosque. What are you talking about? My 6-year-old child were bringing them to a mosque. I basically, when they said my kids' school, I looked up the mosque, looked up the history, went on the website, looked up what they're teaching, and just sent it to the school. You can take our kids there. What do you mean you're taking our kids there? But again, it's national curriculum. It's all about diversity.
When did this start becoming part of the national curriculum?
10 years ago.
Right, so that's what a lot of people are confused about, myself included, which is that we felt in the States that you blinked and this invasion happened. We did not feel like it was this slow burn, but apparently, like you're saying, 10 years, it's been a while.
No, the mass immigration recently is something different to what we've always had. So my hometown, Luton's always had a massive Pakistani community the whole way through growing up because they controlled everything. The whole way through growing up, they were brought in legally. Like, don't forget about the 50,000 coming on the boats. 1 million were brought in the year before. 1 million legally were brought in the year before. They don't leave. Whether they're coming on bullshit student visas, wherever they're coming, they don't leave. None of them leave. None of them.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a misconception about Muslims being a minority, I feel. I don't know. Like,
that's the biggest weapon they have.
There's 2 billion Muslims, and there's about 2.5 billion Christians. That's not a minority, right? What started this?
This started 1,400 years ago. This war, which is what it is. Do you know when I find it quite funny when they talk about Israel? I think you think jihad started in 1948. What are you talking about? Even I've just been to Poland. In Poland Central, there's a statue which is from 1683 on September the 11th, which was the Polish hussars. Were they called hussars? Who was when the Ottoman Empire were prevented at the gates of Vienna from the total onslaught and destruction of Christianity. What was happening then? Jihad. The same that's happening now. How many jihad battles have there been? It's gone on for 1,400 years. There's 45 years.
Last, Peter gets a vision of produce on a sheet, and God says, eat all things or use all things. And that's when we're allowed to eat pork from now on.
I mean, 45 countries where Islam gone as a minority and then overthrown the country. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, they're all Christian countries. What happens to them? What's happening now in Nigeria? They come in small numbers, they come peacefully, and then they get to a certain point and just start dictating shit. And that's what they're doing now at 6% in the UK, across Europe, France. No, get ready for when it's 20%. And the point is, I've got 3 kids. Our job as English men is to protect and preserve a safe and prosperous country for the next generation. That's our kids. Simply being weak and not telling the truth, because everything I'm telling you now, people may not like hearing it. If you're watching this and you don't like hearing it, it's facts. It's all facts. It's facts. Muhammad was a barbarian paedophile. It's a fact. That's not my opinion. It's all from Islamic scripture. He was a warrior. Islam is a religion of peace. You know that phrase?
I hear it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, try and find it before George W. Bush. You won't find it. It was never said in history. No, it was never said. No, I went through the books. Try and find anyone saying it. From my book I wrote Muhammad's Quran, Why Muslims Kill for Islam, which was putting the Quran in chronological order. Because the Quran at the minute, when you pick it up, when Gladstone picked it up, when Churchill picked it up, who both told the truth about Islam, because there were no Muslims here. Gladstone held the Quran above his head and said there'll never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. This is a violent and cursed book. He said that in Parliament. He wasn't talking about an interpretation of the book. He was talking about Islam. Churchill said Islam and a man is like rabies in a dog. Islam has the power to bring Europe back to the Dark Ages. Individual Muslims can show great traits, but when they come together, society goes backwards. Yeah? They believe they own a woman. All these things are facts. These are what our previous leaders knew. Yeah? Why? Because when you used to pick up the Quran, it used to be in chronological order. Why is that important? Because of abrogation, when Muhammad says one thing here, whatever he says later in his life supersedes what he says earlier in his life. So the peaceful verses in the Quran, they're all at the start. Because in the first 10 years of Muhammad's life, he was peaceful. He had 300 followers. 300 followers. Then he brought in rape, war, pillaging, rape, murder, torture, everything. Kidnapping. He found his winning formula. And then he swept through the world of the sword, and they haven't stopped since.
But what I'm trying to figure out next is voting. So I spoke to one man outside a mosque again who barely spoke English, but he repeatedly told me that he was a citizen. He told me that he took the test and he became a citizen. I don't know if he's telling the truth. Is he telling me the truth?
Probably. Someone done a test for him. It's probably all done for him.
Does that happen?
Yeah, everything happens. Everything's fraudulent within their community. Everything.
I spoke to a British man who said that, I said, are you worried about Sharia law coming here? He said, oh, it's already here. They're keeping it on the down low. What exactly does he mean by that? Because I did ask him, and he said, well, if you call the police, if you see...
Police don't come. Mm-hmm. Police don't come. Muslims sort it out themselves. In the Muslim areas, they don't call the police. They sort it out themselves. They have Sharia tribunals, councils, and that's how they deal with things.
Right. One of the things I saw at Whitechapel was it was only one group of police. It was two.
There's on the side of Sharia. Sharia. It says on the side of the mosque you can go into the Sharia building.
Okay. So there was two policemen. I saw them once every hour or something like that. But what I did see a lot of was these security guards with these vests. You know what I'm talking about? Like some park security or something like this. I don't know. But it was it just seemed like their own.
They used to have, they had Sharia patrols going on in London, which was groups of Muslims patrolling the streets. If you're gay, they'd get rid of you, holding hands, drinking alcohol. They'll come and confront you. They'll stop you. You shouldn't be doing that here in this Muslim area. But you see what happens is you just get battered. So if you're drunk and you walk in a Muslim area, you get battered. If you're a woman, you get harassed, sexually abused because you're not covering your hair, you're wearing a short skirt, you get terrorised or raped. If you're gay, you get violently attacked. Look at the rise in Tower Hamlets where you was. Go and have a look at the statistics on the rise on homophobic hate crime. Through the roof, all the gay clubs are gone. They're all closing down.
Yeah, and in those areas, I see the people running for wearing a hijab. In the UK, at least in the United States, you become a citizen, you can vote. It's the same thing here. So you become a citizen, you can vote. So are they voting in droves?
No, they vote in a military fashion. They bust them to the voting polls. It's all organised, which is what Labour intentionally have opened the borders for. They bring them in, they know they're loyal voters. They're happy. You see the people you're interviewing, they're happy to be reliant on the state.
Oh, yeah.
People outside the mosque, they don't work. They don't want to work. They're quite happy taking the state money and sitting there having 7 kids.
And what about these markets that I see popping up everywhere where it's they're on the street,
like
they're on the sidewalk? Are they licensed to sell stuff there?
They get away with everything. So they can set up illegal markets. They had them in Manchester for a decade. They used to have all these, and when the police would come, they'd all warn each other and they'd all shut down quickly. But the police would very rarely go. They get away with selling fake stuff, stolen stuff. They get away with everything. The police do not police their communities like they police other communities. Now, other communities, if you put a sign out on the, I'll give you an example. There's a Finnegan's Cafe, black man in Luton, a very well-respected black man, had a cafe called Finnegan's, and he put a sign out on the road, just on the pavement, saying Finnegan's Cafe down here. The council come, harassed him, fined him, threatened him. So he went and videoed, and he went to the Muslim area. He just videoed the whole road, where all of them have done it.
Yeah.
And he said, how are they not getting done? Because the police are too scared, because if they went in there, they'd all turn them. They can't police it. So then they get away with everything. Parking tickets, everything. They get away with everything.
Why don't they police it?
They're too scared, because they'll come out and riot. They'll come out and violently attack them.
They're scared of being killed, like the police are scared of being killed.
They're scared of provoking the peaceful community.
Interesting.
That's it. That's it. Now, the best thing for a United States audience is that you've come here. And everyone who watches this, don't think this is a problem a million miles away in Great Britain, because this problem is now in your backyard.
Yeah.
You either deal with it now, or you end up like this. And when you end up like this, it gets so bad and so severe that no one knows what to do, like in Great Britain now. You're at a crossroads. The only answer people see is civil conflict, civil war. You ask them, the majority of the population believe we're heading towards civil war. The majority of the population in polls believe we're heading towards civil war. Now, at some point, people start then preparing.
I think that as well, guys.
It's a natural thing. So, who wants that for their country? Who wants it? We want freedom. We want love. We want community. We want cohesion. You're not going to get that out of Islam. It's just the reality. I'm sorry. It's just a reality. So wake up, America.
Is there anything that you'd like to share with the United States audience?
Just that don't believe the media in anything. We have now created our own media. Our saying is we are the media. Choose a gentleman like yourself. So I'd say to anyone, support anyone like this. Support any free citizen journalists. Mainstream media are the cancer. We are the cure. But to an American audience, just get ready.
Anyone who really cares about Western civilization and wants it to prosper, I would say to come to London and just walk around. That's it. You don't have to talk to anybody. Just walk around.
And that is what this.
I wouldn't go to England even if they gave me a free trip. I don't want to go to a place where there's Muslims everywhere. No thanks. Okay, guys, I'll do JW. I think I lined him up. Hang on, no, I didn't. Hang on, guys. Where's JW? Right, got it. There's an ad. Got to wait for the ad to finish and it'll load. Okay.
Washington State's flooding. The levee broke and the flooding went to record levels. We can look at this right here. The water vapor imaging that another storm system is coming over the West Coast. And you can see right here, damage record flooding in Washington State is profound. At the same time, though, we still have the strange fog bank over California. And just today, rare pink fog blank is part of UK with warning issued over poor visibility. Now we got to go into some other things because there's more to talk about with all of this, and we want to check on how you're doing. But first, let's see what's been happening.
The levee in Pacific has broken. You need to go now. This is a level 3 go. There are hundreds of people in their pajamas now going there, trying to get buses together. For those of you who have already lost your cars, this is not like Tequila. This is a big one. There are now well over 1,000 residents here behind me who are emptying out. There's a helicopter overhead giving orders. If you get this and you are anywhere around White River, this is the one that's fed by Mud Mountain. You need to go now.
Wow.
Now, there is more of this coming. We could look at over the next 10 days where water vapor will be coming in from the new storm system that's already currently actively happening. Lots of people out of power at the same time. While this is happening, we can see
I sort of knew it was a typo.
that it says over 276,679 people are out of power currently as we speak. We're going to go to the ground, look at some footage of what's happening. But before we do that, let's look at what the governor has said.
This is a major event. A lot of our states underwater. We can't access it.
Washington state officials are calling one of the most devastating disasters in the state's history.
All right, so what's coming? We'll look at right here. You can see what AP says. We're in for the long haul. Ferguson said at the news conference, if you get an evacuation order, for God's sakes, follow it. It won't be until after waters recede and landslide risk subsides. The crews will be able to fully assess the damage, he said. The state has some counties making several $1 million available to people to help pay for hotels and groceries and necessities. What's going on, everybody? How are you doing in Washington? Let us know. What do you think is going on here? And here's people on the ground. They said that they saw the power outages happen. They said the winds were very strong. And something else was happening too with the fill up of water in multiple different areas. We'll show some crews here in a second. Feels like we entered something much bigger right now in the Earth's shift. And if you don't think it's just an Earth shift, let me know in the comment section. And wherever you're at in your area, we're going to go a little bit deeper because, like we said, our people in Washington right now are going through something that is pretty much devastating. I've been through Hurricane Katrina, and I know these things are going to take a long time to rebuild. If you look right here, you only see one guy with a backhoe trying to stop some of the incoming river flow. Now, there are going to be more crews obviously coming out there throughout the days because they're set for another one to come, another atmospheric river. This is really a back-to-back situation here that we're going to keep watching for everybody's family members on the ground there. Like we said, get ready for the next 10 days. What's going to be coming? Forecast already more water vapor transport coming. So that's going to be something we're going to be watching out for. But as all this occurs, we have another event that the fog is now pink. And this has been put out, and you can see where right here, the Independent, rare pink fog descends on the UK as Met Office issues weather warnings across the country. Number of flights from London City Airport even have been canceled because of this pink fog. Now, this is very interesting here because we're canceling flights due to the visibility of the dense fog. But, you know, people are looking at this, and I got videos coming up here in just a second. The Mel.co puts this out. And I wanted to ask people, whether you're in California, but specifically if you're in this area where this pink fog is, what is this like? What are you feeling? Because we've had reports come in that people in California, which we have some video clips from them showing the person actually goes and sees something in the fog where it's like a powdery substance that he shows on camera. Before we go to that though, we'll let you see what this rare pink fog looks like right now.
Okay, I swear I've never seen this before. It's like fog, but pink fog. So weird.
So we're going to go a little bit deeper into this because, like we said, on the 16th, there was an AGU meeting for the Pacific Coastal Fog Project. We're not saying we're tying this to the event, but we're saying that we're going to be showing you what actually was looked at. And I told you, I said these low fog clouds, that's specifically what they were looking into. And we're going to go into the language and everything about that here in just a second. But what is going on? Like when we look at this, we've seen the weather really going to a new level. We've had unusual snow, we've had this unusual fog. We've had just these atmospheric rivers going about. And it's not just happening in California, it's happening on the entire West Coast, up to Canada, UK. It's all really at this point coming to a head. And I want to read what some people say. It's a warning. He's trying to get our attention. Some people say these folks are up to no good. Some people say. Now I want to hear what does the pink fog feel like? People started fleeing the fog in California. I did a video on that because they started to realize that the sun wasn't coming up. And what I've noticed on radar, when we looked at radar, is since this atmospheric river is coming over, I noticed that fog, even with the wind blowing that was in California, it wasn't moving as the wind blowed on radar. So you can see right here, this is the radar imaging of the new atmospheric river that's coming from Hawaii Island.
Wow, look at that.
Maybe now, we can see a heat wave coming in too, to California area, but maybe now we'll start to see the fog move, maybe, because the rain is supposed to clear that out. And if that doesn't happen, then I would be like, well, I don't know what's going on here. Something is really, really strange happening. Even the weather guy said it was unusual. Even NASA saying unrelenting fall. So let's check this out really quick. There's a guy who was out there in California on the area where the fog bank is that's not moving. He goes and he shows his car that drove through it, and then look what he sees.
Well, when they say they're sitting in this fucking fog, and I've just been driving regularly, what is this right here? There's something in the fog that I can't explain, but I ain't drove to nothing but fog, and look at it.
Wow, so have any of y'all seen that substance on the fog? Let me know in the chat right now. This powdery substance. Some people said that it looked like almost like snow. But let me know what's going on with that, because that was my first time seeing that video clip, because we've seen the things moving through the atmosphere. And some people say that's just fog, it's just dense moisture coming through. But in fact, cameras detecting so-called moisture or something else. Somebody says crazy, pray people. Can I be seen? So have you been seeing that? If you're in what location have you been seeing powdery substance? And people told me that they were seeing yellow fog in some areas. And that was pretty much the strangest fog that I've been reported into me that has not been officially confirmed yet. So I'm moving a little forward here, but I'm looking for your comments here because I want to see what's going on. You're helping me with this entire investigation here. Before we move forward to the Pacific Coastal Fog research and what's happening, that research actually took place in Louisiana, and it's happening from the 15th to the 19th. But before we get into that, off of the coast of Oregon, so we're still on the West Coast here. WION News showed like the birds, and then people showed the birds. Like since the fog is in the atmosphere, a lot of them, some of them are flying in Oregon, and then in other areas in California, the second clip you're going to see, they're kind of grounding themselves because through these events, like they can't just fly through this fog, and that's kind of like a sign. But let's see what these clips are talking about.
4X Ultra, ZR Cobbs, 100% beat.
It is a weird beard, isn't it?
Apply in just 15 minutes with the Greater Bank Digital Home Loan.
With Qantas Hotels and Holidays, every stay is better with points. Earn 3 points for every dollar.
Look at.
I remember reading The Fog as well. It was one of the first books I read, Vast. Stephen King, wasn't it?
This is what it's like in downtown Portland right now. It's so loud.
They be crazy with it. They be getting crazy with it. I feel my turn. I'm literally gonna get pooped on. I'm gonna get pooped on. Like I need an umbrella or something. Not for rain, but for birds.
That fog is so thick that's covering California. Here's another video clip right here. The other one was at December 14th. This is another clip from California where the guy sees all the birds on the ground and they're just grounded pretty much for this moment as the fall comes in California. And some people said the crow's getting ready.
I saw one girl last time this fog got around, and her cat died. It got like asthma and all that within like 3 or 4 days.
Other people saying something is off. But usually when the magnetic field or something like this happens, too much different cloud coverage, maybe too much fog, this may disrupt the patterns of their flights. And maybe they're not getting into it because there's a reason behind that as well. So I'm watching the patterns of the birds, the animals. This is going to be very important. Now, when we go back to the Pacific Coastal Fog Research, the grant was already put in for $797,000, but we go here because it's a new meeting that just happened on the 16th. And we told you Scripps Institution of Oceanography was
Yeah, I read Pet Cemetery as well. Very good book.
involved. They were predicting the future of fog with Indiana University. And then when we look here, it says coastal fog and its ecosystem impacts from local to global scales. They looked at this during the same time that the fog bank was over California. Am I saying that that's connected? No, but we're looking at the research here and we're just making all the details be known. Of fog system exam, future fog changes in fog and low clouds. See specifically low clouds and their impacts on ecosystems and societies. We welcome submissions, observations, modeling, and prediction. Now, what was the other thing that I didn't show you? It says this: observe fog and low cloud cover along North American West Coast. Long-term trends, variability, and interaction with marine and terrestrial heat waves. They're looking at how this reacts with heat waves as well. And that's interesting because the heat wave is just starting to come in at the lower portion, kind of like almost toward Latin America. Understand the future of coastal fog. We present results of global scale literature, review of the fog frequency, contextualized by in-depth and long-term trends in fog frequency and duration in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as the environmental variables impacting these. We ended discussing potential impacts of such trends on ecosystems, both local and global, based on the current state of knowledge regarding vegetation, ability to uptake fog water through leaves and roots. So they're also looking at how this is hitting the crops, how this is hitting the soil. But they said they were managing coastal resources. With these coastal resources that's being managed, as we see these things start to shift, we will see them start to talk about a little bit more. So you want to stay around if you want more of that. I'm going to continue to follow this because as the peak fall comes in, as people are starting to see that in UK, we need to really monitor each other because like we said, all we have is each other pretty much going through these events. Specifically when all the flooding and everything else starts to happen, you only got the people that's next and close to you. That's why this community here, we want to create that where we have this in-tight scenario where all of us can actually come back here, look in the comment section the next 5 to 10 days, and then we keep updating. And we tell each other, okay, how are you doing in Washington State? Because I wanted to know people in Washington, they're contacting, they're saying stuff in the comments section. They're like, well, my family evacuated. Right now we're out of power. So like, I mean, that would be even cool that people in California could even go lend a hand if they could. I know they're going through their own scenarios, but if you're close in that area, evacuating has been the biggest thing. And we told you that a lot of migration was going to start to happen as this starts to continue. We're now hitting that period where we're starting to see mass migrations start to occur. Like 7 years ago, I was talking about a lot of these events and how these impacts of flooding would increase. And a lot of people believe that it's not just a situation where it's an earth shift here. We're also looking to, is there a man-made
Andrew, this has been your worst Ashes tour, hasn't it? I've never seen the British so defeated in cricket.
dynamics in here? We look at that, we question all those things, and we do start to gather information. And if we confirm something, we always bring it out. Somebody says, we never get fog here. You have to tell me where you're at specifically. When you drop the location, I can then look into it. I'm researching about each location. If I've neglected an area that is happening somewhere around the United States or around the world, let me know. If you want that covered, you got information, you tell me in the chat, hey, I'm in Africa, this is happening. Hey, I'm in Australia, this is happening. It kind of ties in the whole.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless. See you tomorrow.
A bigger picture. Because basically, we're blessed to have a moment where we can have people chime in from all over the world, and we can have these conversations that are critical to us seeing. Now, Tanya says in the chat, the birds of the